Chapter 1126. Even Chu Xiu was shocked by He Jie's ability to absorb the world's yuan qi into his body. His strength was much stronger than Tong Ba Kong. After the heaven-earth yuan qi entered his body, it actually formed an yuan qi storm. His strength was already close to the heaven and earth profound insight realm, and with the support of this power, his aura had even grown to the heaven and earth profound insight realm. Moreover, his endurance was also very strong. Although he was already sweating profusely from the pain, he did not cry out. He was still enduring it. Seeing his strength climb higher and higher, Chu Xiu coughed and said, "Divine power is endless, but human strength is limited. Don't be greedy, or you'll end up making a fool of yourself under the backlash of divine power." He Jie only stopped forcing the world energy into his body after hearing Chu Xiu's words. He let out a long sigh, but he didn't look as miserable as Tong Bakang. Like Green Jade, he put a hand to his forehead and even knelt on one knee, bowing respectfully to Chu Xiu. "Greetings, Divine Messenger." The other Black Sif tribe members also knelt on one knee and greeted the Divine Messenger. At this moment, no one doubted Chu Xiu anymore. If the person who could bestow them with such power wasn't the Divine Messenger, then what was it? The Black Sif tribe members no longer doubted Chu Xiu, but Kocha felt a chill run down his spine. The humans and barbarians were at odds. The former county governor was already unable to suppress them. Now, Chu Xiu had actually given the barbarians such great power, allowing their cultivation to soar by a large margin. This was simply giving aid to the enemy. What was he trying to do? If he didn't know that Chu Xiu was prime sovereign successor and a good friend of Eastern Region wayfarer Lu Sanjin, he would have suspected that Chu Xiu was a spy or a traitor. But Kocha also knew that once he boarded Chu Xiu's ship, he wouldn't be able to get off. Although it was Chu Xiu who had orchestrated everything that had happened today, he had also put in quite a bit of effort. "Rise, everyone." He Jie stood up and asked excitedly, "Divine Messenger, can everyone in our Black Net tribe possess the power of God?" Chu Xiu shook his head, "Of course not, only the brave warriors who have comprehended the ancestral power of the gods are qualified to receive the power of the gods. The minimum requirement for refining the body with true fire was the real pellet state, and one must cultivate the internal force true fire. As for the operation that Chu Xiu was doing in forcefully shoving the world's origin energy into the bodies of these barbarians, they had to reach the realm where they could mobilize the world's origin energy. You can't even comprehend the power of heaven and earth, so how can you keep this power in your body?" Even though He Jie was a little disappointed, he knew that this was normal. After all, this was the power of the gods. There had to be some limitations. There were a lot of people in the Black Sif tribe, and there were more than 100 warriors who could feel the ancestral power of the gods. Chu Xiu said, "Call out all the qualified people. Just do it together. Remember, if you can't hold on, then retreat. Otherwise, if you are greedy and cause a backlash of divine power, the consequences will be very serious." He Jie called all the qualified Black Net tribe warriors over. Although more than 100 people consumed a lot of internal force and true fire, Chu Xiu could still hold on. After everyone finished refining, the strength of the entire Black Net tribe had increased by several times or even more than 10 times. It had directly become a big tribe, even stronger than when the previous high priest was still alive. Green Jade stared at Chu Xiu with wide eyes and said, "Sir Divine Messenger, can I accept the gift of divine power?" You can't, only warriors can." The priests and sorcerers of the barbarian tribe were very mysterious. The Daoist had spent 10,000 years trying to figure out where their power came from. They only knew that their mental strength was very strong. Chu Xiu couldn't do anything about this. Fortunately, the people of the Black Net tribe now firmly believed that Chu Xiu was the Divine Messenger, so they didn't doubt his words. Green Jade was just a little disappointed. "Chief, quickly go and arrange a banquet. The arrival of the Divine Messenger is the best day for our Black Net tribe to celebrate." Green Jade reminded. Hejia patted his head and said, I almost forgot. Sir Divine Messenger, quickly go and rest. I'll go and arrange the banquet. When the people of the Black Net tribe arranged the largest tent for Chu Xiu and the others had already left, Kecha looked at Chu Xiu with a panicked expression and said, Sir, what are you planning to do? Chu Xiu said calmly, I told you, create a god. Don't you see that they already treat me as the divine messenger? Believe it or not, if I ask them to smash that mountain god consecration now, they will do it. Kecha was about to go crazy. But sir, they are the barbarian tribe. What you're doing today is equivalent to doing the barbarian tribe a big favor. You forcefully created a big tribe. Chu Xiu stared at Kecha, stretched out a finger, and shook it. He said, they are the barbarian tribe, but they are the barbarian tribe that listens to my orders. Also, I like people who listen to me. I don't like voices that question me. You've only been with me for a short time, so I'll forgive you this time. Also, I'll give you a chance to leave now. How about that? Kecha shuddered and quickly said, Don't worry, sir. I'm willing to follow you. I'll never betray you. Although Kecha was half a barbarian, he wasn't as simple-minded as the other barbarians. He had been in the Imperial Sky Pavilion for a long time. Of course, he knew what he should do and what he shouldn't do. He knew so many of Chu Xiu's secrets. Would it be possible for Chu Xiu to let him leave now? Perhaps he would be walking on the road to hell. The Black Gauze tribe's banquet was very boring. It could be summed up in 2 words, barbecue and dancing. However, the barbecue was very bold. It was made from the meat of the ferocious beasts in the Dilua mountain range. It contained great power. Even if these barbarians didn't cultivate martial arts, they would still be strong enough to eat this kind of food since they were young. Lu Jadeite sat next to Chu Xiu. She didn't have the strong sweaty smell of the ordinary barbarians. Instead, she had a natural fragrance of plants. Moreover, Lu Jadeite wasn't wearing the black priestess robe that she had worn before. Instead, she was wearing a simple leather armor that revealed her slim waist and long legs. Chu Xiu looked at her with admiration. Her breasts were round and long, but they weren't white. However, they had an exotic charm to them. Lu Jadeite's figure could be said to be the best among all the women Chu Xiu had ever seen. She was even more voluptuous than Mei Qinglian. Of course, because Mei Qinglian cultivated the great beauty technique, her seductive temperament was something that other women couldn't compare to. Lord Messenger, may I ask you a few questions? Lu Jadeite stared at Chu Xiu with her big eyes. The biggest difference between the barbarian tribe's priestesses and the other barbarians wasn't the power they possessed, but their curiosity. This was what Lu Jadeite's master had told her. Only curious people could become priestesses and pursue all kinds of inconceivable things. What questions? What does God look like? Chu Xiu pointed at himself and then at Lu Jadeite. He said, both our races were created by God. Of course, we look like you and me. Haven't you realized that among all living creatures, apart from the slight difference in appearance between our 2 races, everything else is exactly the same? Lu Jadeite nodded. Then what does God's residence look like? What did the ancestors of my Black Luo tribe use to exchange for God's gift? I don't know. Lu Jadeite's eyes revealed a trace of astonishment. There were still things that God didn't know. Chu Xiu spread out his hands and said, I've said it before. I'm only the incarnation of God's will. You and I both have God's bloodline. Therefore, as long as God wills it, I will know what I should do and what I should do. Therefore, I'm God's emissary, but not God himself. Do you think God will personally do such a small thing? Chu Xiu made it sound unclear, but in fact, it was because he hadn't thought of how to make up this part. Then what do you mean? Lord Messenger, do you have another identity among the foreigners? Of course, I'm not talking about you, but other people. Lord Messenger, you're an existence that transcends the two races. At this point, there was no need for Chu Xiu to hide anymore. He directly took off his mask and said, I'm the Imperial Sky Pavilion's newly appointed Jianghu County's county chief. Lu Jadeite and He Jie, who was listening to their conversation, were shocked. They knew that the god's emissary was an outsider, but they didn't expect him to be the Jianghu County's county chief. If Chu Xiu had dared to reveal his identity earlier, they would definitely have attacked him. However, now that they firmly believed in Chu Xiu's identity as the god's emissary, they were only shocked. They didn't have any other reactions and even thought that this was normal. If Chu Xiu was not the god's emissary, with his identity as the Jianghu County's county chief, he should be suppressing the barbarians. Why would he give them so much power and help them? After being shocked, Lu Jadeite fell silent for a moment before she said, Lord Messenger, since we and the foreigners were created by God and come from the same source, why would those foreigners come and invade our home? Chu Xiu fell silent for a moment before he suddenly pointed at the fence in the corner and said, Are the wild beasts in there reared by you guys? He Jie quickly said, Of course, they're pufferbone beasts. They're stupid and not aggressive. They can grow up no matter what they eat. That's why we caught some cubs and reared them there. Do you guys care if they fight? He Jie pursed his lips and said, Of course not. Who has the leisure to care about them? If we kill them, they'll be perfect for eating. Chu Xiu said meaningfully, That's how God sees you guys too. Lu Jadeite and He Jie shuddered at the same time. Don't bring you guys into God's thoughts because your vision isn't on the same level at all. Oh, that's right. God has another matter to deal with. Of course, this is an even smaller matter. You guys can choose to do it or not. In any case, there are many barbarian tribes. I can go look for other tribes. He Jie hurriedly said, My Black Net tribe is God's most loyal people. Even if we have to pay the price of exterminating our tribe, we will still complete God's decree. Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said, There's a tribe called Haslu. They worship the evil god and have even committed blasphemous actions. This has made God very unhappy. Ketcha's expression didn't change, but he was shocked in his heart. Chu Xiu was doing this for that saber. Chapter 1127. The Hasla tribe was a big tribe in the southern barbarian land. Even when the former high priest was still alive, the Black Luo tribe didn't dare to fight against them. But now, the Black Luo tribe's overall strength had increased greatly. Therefore, He Jie didn't even think about it and said with a murderous look, Please rest assured, God's messenger. All blasphemers will be killed. Their souls will fall into the netherworld and will never be able to worship the gods and ancestors. In the past, everyone worshipped different gods. As long as they didn't blaspheme their own gods, other tribes could do whatever they wanted. But now, He Jie felt that all the tribes were blasphemers. That's right, go and tear down that evil god. From today onwards, our Black Luo tribe will only worship the true God. He Jie waved his hand and immediately ordered people to tear down the mountain god's worship. He had always thought that these people were very firm in their faith. But now, it seemed that they were just so. They had forgotten the old god when there was a new god. Actually, this was very normal for Chu Xiu. He had given them a big enough shock today. The Black Luo tribe and the barbarian tribes worshipped gods might have existed in the ancient times before the people of the lower realm came. For example, there were some ancient demonic gods that had the power to penetrate the heavens and the earth. But later on, these existences disappeared. At least, the people of the lower realm didn't see these things. Therefore, they had disappeared for at least 10,000 years. There hadn't been any miracles for 10,000 years, but the faith of these barbarians hadn't wavered. It was purely because they were simple-minded and worshipped gods as a habit. Now that Chu Xiu had displayed such a miracle in front of them, it was obvious who was more trustworthy. Chu Xiu nodded in satisfaction and said, then I'll have to trouble Chief He Jie. My other identity is the governor of Jianghu County. Therefore, I have always been in Jianghu County. As long as anyone in the Black Luo tribe can sense the power of the gods, they can come to me directly. I can bestow them with divine power. Chu Xiu said this to tell the Black Luo tribe that this god's messenger wasn't just a one-time deal. If the Black Civ tribe wanted to continue obtaining this kind of power, they would just have to throw their lives away for him. But in reality, He Jie and Green Jade didn't think that much. They really thought that this was just a one-time deal. Only powerful warriors like them could receive the god's blessing. They didn't think that their clansmen would also have a chance. Didn't this mean that their Black Net tribe would become stronger and stronger? This was simply a pleasant surprise, causing He Jie and Green Jade to treat Chu Xiu with even more respect. On the second day, the entire He Luo tribe assembled and attacked the Hasla tribe. Even with Chu Xiu's spiritual sense, he couldn't tell north from south in this place. But these barbarians seemed to be born for this kind of terrain, and they arrived at the Hasla tribe at the fastest speed possible. In Chu Xiu's eyes, the vigilance of these barbarian tribes was simply unbearable. When the Black Civ tribe appeared in their field of vision, the people of the Hasla tribe finally reacted and rushed out in a group. The chief of the Hasla tribe was a one-eyed man dressed in battle armor, and his aura was incomparably strong. The chief of the barbarian tribe seemed to like the battle armor of the human tribe. Their bodies were strong, so battle armor was indeed very effective for them. Of course, these things weren't cheap, and they could only be exchanged for with a high-level dire beast. The chief of the Hasla tribe looked at He Jie in astonishment. It was obvious that he had sensed that He Jie's aura was different from before. But then he sneered and said, "He Jie, what do you mean by bringing people to the Hasla tribe? You seem to have become even stronger than before. But do you think that you would dare to challenge the dignity of the Hasla tribe with just this little bit of strength? It's like a monkey on a tree picking up a stone and trying to challenge the status of the Tiger King." What a joke. He Jie didn't care about the chief's sarcasm. His eyes emitted a strong murderous aura as he waved his hand and shouted, "Blasphemer, die." As soon as his voice fell, thousands of Black Civ tribe warriors rushed madly towards the people of the Hasla tribe. The chief of the Hasla tribe was stunned and hurriedly said, "What blasphemy? I haven't seen the Black Civ tribe since the death of your high priest. When did I blaspheme your god?" The chief of the Hasla tribe was dumbfounded when he saw He Jie's murderous aura and extremely resentful look on his face, as if they had done something unforgivable. The barbarians were straightforward people. If they wanted to fight, they would fight. They would never look for excuses. Looking at He Jie's expression, it seemed as if his tribe had really blasphemed their god. However, the chief of the Hasla tribe really couldn't remember what had happened. However, He Jie didn't give him a chance to explain at all. The huge beast bone hammer in his hand smashed down with earth-shattering power, forcing the chief of the Hasla tribe to accept the challenge. Chu Xiu watched the battle from behind. This was the first time he had seen the way the barbarians fought. It could only be described as simple and violent. Almost everyone's fists met flesh. Their powerful bodies collided and killed, and the entire battlefield was trampled to pieces. Especially He Jie and the chief of the Hasla tribe. Their strength was already comparable to that of a mysterious opening realm expert. Every punch and every kick had the power to shatter mountains and shatter the earth. The chi of heaven and earth involuntarily gathered around them and turned into a storm. From Chu Xiu's point of view, the battle between these two people was like that of two huge beasts that could destroy the entire jungle. This kind of head-on battle of flesh was a bit too much for the warriors. Most of the high-level warriors would be able to quickly determine the winner as long as the two sides were not in a very evenly matched state. The two sides fought fiercely for a quarter of an hour. He Jie was slightly suppressed by the chief of the Hasla tribe. After all, he had just obtained this power, and now he had to fight someone the next day. Although his strength was not weaker than the chief of the Hasla tribe, his control of his power was far inferior. However, although the battle on his side was not ideal, the other members of the Black Luo tribe were massacring them, causing the people of the Hasla tribe to retreat. Previously, the strength of the Black Luo tribe was only slightly weaker than that of the Hasla tribe. They were in between a big tribe and a small tribe. However, after Chu Xiu had increased the strength of over 100 of their warriors in one go the day before, their overall strength had increased by more than 10 times. Even among the big tribes, they were considered relatively strong. Chu Xiu saw Emerald make her move. He was quite curious about the barbarian priest's methods. However, Emerald did not kill anyone today. She was only assisting the warriors of the Black Luo tribe. Emerald's hand moved gently in front of her body, and elegant runes danced along with her fingers. These runes affected the power of heaven and earth. Each rune seemed to have a different attribute. Some runes represented wind, which made the warriors of the Black Luo tribe faster. Some runes represented wood, which made the warriors of the Black Luo tribe more resistant to attacks. Chu Xiu shook his head gently. He did not understand the principle behind this. It looked like a formation, but it was not a formation. When the chief of the Hasla tribe saw his people being massacred, he no longer cared about how he had blasphemed the god of the Black Luo tribe. His eyes were bloodshot. He took out a scimitar from his armor. It was a scimitar that looked like a full moon. The appearance of the dazzling blade made He Jie shiver. It was daytime, but he felt as if he was looking at a full moon in the sky. The only flaw was that the scimitar was full of nicks. There was even a very obvious crack on it. The moment he saw the scimitar, Chu Xiu's eyes lit up. The devil's blade that had once belonged to Dugu Weiwei, listening to the spring rain in the small building. It was indeed in the hands of the chief of the Hasla tribe. The moment Patriarch Hasla grasped listen to spring rain, his face suddenly turned pale. His pitch-black face strangely paled. He Jie. I did not want to use this ancestral blade, as it can only be used to deal with outsiders. But now that you have attacked the Hasla tribe for no reason, don't blame me for using you as a sacrifice to this ancestral blade. As soon as the chief of the Hasla tribe finished speaking, his blade slashed down at an extremely fast speed. The cold blade seemed as if it was going to tear everything in front of it apart. He Jie held the beast bone hammer in his hand and roared angrily. The ground under his feet cracked inch by inch. As he smashed the hammer down, an explosion sounded in mid-air. The sound waves caused the surrounding essence of the world to explode. However, everything was torn in half by the blow of the chief of the Hasla tribe, who was holding listening to the spring rain. The powerful force was like paper, easily pulverized. The beast bone hammer in He Jie's hand, which was made from the leg bone of a high-level fierce beast, was also easily shattered. In his shock, He Jie quickly retreated and finally avoided the blade. However, the battle armor on his body, which had been exchanged for using 3 fierce beasts, had a deep crack on it. It had almost injured his body. The chief of the Hasla tribe laughed coldly. Under the ancestor's blade, you are like a mouse under a withered leaf. You cannot withstand a single blow. Didn't you say that I was blasphemous? Very well, when I destroy your Black Net tribe, I will use your god to fill the latrine. As soon as he finished speaking, the chief of the Hasla tribe slashed out again. In his shock, He Jie's figure turned around and fled. However, the chief's blade was too fast. It was so fast that it surpassed time and space. At this moment, a long arrow, which was burning with destructive flames and a dense power of nirvanic destruction, shot out and hit the blade. Although the arrow was torn apart by listening to the spring rain, the powerful power of nirvanic destruction and the destructive flames, which were like maggots in bones, forced the chief of the Hasla tribe to stop in his tracks. Waves of air burst out from his body to extinguish the destructive flames. Chu Xiu stepped forward and stared at the chief of the Hasla tribe. He said coldly, "Do you think you are worthy of holding listening to the spring rain?" Chapter 1128. The demonic blade, listen to the spring rain, was a sacred object in the eyes of all demonic cultivators. If the rootless sacred flame represented the Kunlun devil cult, then the demonic blade, listen to the spring rain, represented Dugu Weiwei, the supreme demon lord who had dominated the pugilistic world in the past. Although listen to the spring rain was damaged, it was still in the hands of a barbarian tribe leader. Even Chu Xiu felt that this was an insult to listen to the spring rain. At that moment, Chu Xiu was dressed in a black robe and wore a strange and mysterious mask. However, one could tell from his skin color and aura that he was not a barbarian. Chief Haslu looked at He Jia in disbelief and said angrily, "You actually colluded with outsiders." He Jia ignored Chief Haslu and bowed to Chu Xiu guiltily. "I, He Jia, am so useless. To think that I would have to trouble Sir Oracle to help me." Haslu looked at all of this in disbelief. "He Jia. Did your brain get swallowed by water worms? How dare you call an outsider oracle? What god's oracle is he? What's wrong with you? Have you been bewitched by some evil god?" He Jia snorted coldly. "Evil god? The one you Hasla tribe worships is the evil god. There is only one god in this world, the one and only true god." "Crazy, you're all crazy." Chief Hasla glared at Chu Xiu. "You're the one who bewitched the Black Civ tribe? Outsider, you're courting death." As Chief Haslu slashed down with his blade, an extreme sharpness rushed towards him. Even Chu Xiu had to admit that the listen to the spring rain cultivated by Dugu Weiwei was indeed stronger than the break formation in his hand. Although the foundation of weapons was the same, after being nurtured over time, they could become stronger. This was the case even after listen to the spring rain was damaged. The break formation in Chu Xiu's hand was unsheathed, and at the same time, the blade intent of the break formation was unleashed. The same extreme sharpness collided. Breaking the formation and listen to the spring rain, which came from the same source, instantly exploded with extreme sharpness. Especially under the blade intent of the break mantra, Ting Chunyu even began to tremble involuntarily, gradually breaking away from Hasla Patriarch's control. Listen to the spring rain's artifact spirit was already damaged. However, even though the artifact spirit was no longer there were still some imprints and instincts left on the saber. It remembered the blade intent of the breaking formula. It remembered the person who had once held it and dominated the entire Jianghu. In an instant, listen to the spring rain trembled violently. The powerful sharp qi even began to backfire, causing Hasla to spit out a mouthful of blood. He looked at listen to the spring rain in his hand in disbelief. Every time he used this saber, he would have to pay a huge price to suppress its sharpness. However, he thought that this was normal, because this was a blade left behind by his ancestors, and only the strongest warriors could use it. But now, he could feel the will holding this saber. It was a kind of disdain, a kind of contempt, as if he was not qualified to hold it. The blade intent of the break mantra slashed down, and the armor on Hasla Patriarch's body was torn apart like a piece of paper. His whole body was also cut into two by Chu Xiu's saber. Listen to the spring rain was naturally held in Chu Xiu's hand, without the slightest bit of backfire. He Jia, who was behind, was dumbfounded as he looked at this scene. He thought to himself that the oracle was indeed the oracle. Such a powerful Hasla Patriarch could not even withstand a single strike from the oracle. However, He Jia did not know that he had contributed at least 30% to Chu Xiu's strike. Previously, when Hasla was fighting with He Jia, he had already used up a portion of his strength. Forcefully using listen to the spring rain had consumed another portion of his strength. After that, he had been backfired by the sharpness of listen to the spring rain. At that time, he was actually an arrow at the end of its flight, so it was not surprising that he had been killed by Chu Xiu's saber. At that moment, Chu Xiu was holding listen to the spring rain in his hand, but his mind was filled with illusions. In front of him, there was a dark battlefield. Astral energy storms, broken limbs, and shards of weapons could be seen everywhere. In an instant, the sky was dark, and even the surrounding space was torn apart by a powerful force. The domain laws and so on had already exceeded Chu Xiu's imagination. There were also figures within, but they were blurry. However, each of them was extremely powerful, like immortals or Buddhas. However, at this moment, all of them were enveloped by boundless dark clouds of demonic qi. The power contained within the dark clouds of demonic qi seemed to have surpassed space and time. It was somewhat similar to the power of Chu Xiu's colorless sealing palm imprint, which was able to contain Mount Sumeru in a mustard seed. However, it was even more profound. Chu Xiu desperately wanted to see clearly, but at the next moment, the boundless dark clouds of demonic qi were torn apart. The clouds parted and the moon shone brightly. It was not a real bright moon, but a blade light. Like the bright moon, it illuminated the figures of these people. Clear sky reflecting shadow. In the next moment, the blade light shattered, and the figures that were illuminated were also strangely torn apart, instantly turning into a pile of broken limbs. The scene in his mind dissipated, but Chu Xiu's heart pounded violently. He was so close to being unable to withstand the powerful pressure and leaving the illusion. This was the mark within. Listen to the spring rain. It was the mark left behind by Dugu Weiwei during his final battle with the Daoist expert. Most importantly, in that scene just now, what Dugu Weiwei used was not a blade technique, but a mystique. The clouds parted and the moon shone brightly. Clear sky reflecting shadow. It was powerful and strange, unstoppable and unavoidable. Because Chu Xiu had encountered mystiques before, and he himself had used them, he could be sure that what Dugu Weiwei used was also a mystique, and it was a powerful mystique that was beyond his imagination. From the moment Chu Xiu held listen to the spring rain in his hand to the moment he saw the illusion, it only took a moment. At that moment, the barbarian warriors of the Hasla tribe were on the verge of collapse after seeing their chief killed by Chu Xiu's blade. At that moment, an old man wearing all kinds of colorful ornaments in the crowd looked at Chu Xiu with hatred, spitting out a bunch of syllables. The next moment, an illusion appeared in front of Chu Xiu's eyes. A huge black panther, hundreds of feet tall, was about to bite him. Chu Xiu looked at the demon-like black panther, shook his head, and said, "The Hasla tribe is really unlucky." The next moment, Chu Xiu's figure disappeared, and the high priest of the Hasla tribe was shocked to find that his surroundings had turned into endless darkness. His figure began to fall continuously, as if he had fallen into an endless purgatory. And at the bottom of the purgatory, there was a black panther with its mouth wide open, waiting for him. As the black panther swallowed him in one gulp, the high priest of the Hasla tribe immediately bled from his 7 orifices. He twitched twice and fell to the ground. The inner demon said disdainfully, "Weak, simply too weak. You can't compare to the monk who died in your hands at all." Chu Xiu shook his head gently. It was not that the high priest of the Hasla tribe was weak, it could only be said that they were too unlucky. The chief of the Hasla tribe happened to be holding listen to the spring rain, so it could be said that he was completely countered by Chu Xiu. Their high priest should be good at illusions. For most of the barbarians, who were well-developed but simple-minded, this was simply a great killing weapon. But for Chu Xiu, who had just fought a life-and-death battle with the Daoist Supreme Master of Illusions, Marika, the Master of the Celestial Palace of the Illusion Celestial Palace of the Vishnu Temple of the Sanskrit sect, the cultivation of illusions of the High Priest of the Hasla tribe was simply at the level of kindergarten. It was child's play. On the other side, when Green Jade and He Jie saw that Chu Xiu had so easily defeated the strongest high priest and chief of the Hasla tribe, the two of them were even more in awe of Chu Xiu's strength. Of course, Chu Xiu would not explain it to them modestly. With the chief and the high priest dead, the rest of the barbarians were almost unable to withstand a single blow and were defeated one after another. Chu Xiu asked He Jie, "What do you usually do to defeated enemies?" He Jie said in surprise, "Of course we kill all of them. Their ancestors are different from the gods we worship, so of course we have to kill them." Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows. Of course, he did not feel that the barbarians were cruel. In fact, he had destroyed many families. He just felt that it was a bit wasteful for the barbarians to do so. They could kill people and also cut the weeds to the roots, but the premise was that there must be a necessary reason. He Jie's reason was a bit ridiculous in Chu Xiu's eyes. No wonder the barbarians could not defeat the human race. It was not just a matter of strength. Chu Xiu said patiently, "You are all created by the gods, so if you trace back to the source, you actually all have the same ancestor. As for the problem of faith, they do not know that they worship an evil god, so you have to enlighten them and let them know what they should do." "What if they don't listen?" Green Jade asked. Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said, "It's very simple. If they want to repent and worship the true god, just turn them into Black Luo clan's people. If they don't want to repent, they can become slaves. Next time when we fight, let them fight in the front. As for those who don't want to repent and resist, we can kill them later." The Black Luo clan was now under his command, but in Chu Xiu's eyes, the Black Luo clan was still a bit too weak. Chu Xiu only had the real fire body refinement technique to enhance the cultivation of the Black Luo tribe's warriors. So, he couldn't come up with anything else. However, Chu Xiu still had many things that he needed the Black Luo clan's help. He had to make them strong enough to fight against those powerful forces in the depths of the Di Luo mountain range. Therefore, he had to let these barbarians know what it meant to grow stronger by fighting. The more they fought, the weaker they became. He Jia waved his hand, telling the other Black Luo clan's people to stop killing and capture them alive. After spending half a day to clean up the battlefield, Chu Xiu said to He Jia, "You know my other identity, so I can't stay in the southern barbarian land all the time. However, the Kangwu county is not far from here, so Kecha will stay in the southern peace prefecture. If you want to find me, you can go through Kecha. Similarly, if I want to find you, I will also go through Kecha." Kecha, who was following behind Chu Xiu, smiled bitterly, but didn't resist. In any case, he had already boarded Chu Xiu's pirate ship, and it was too late for him to get off. He could only do his best to work for Chu Xiu, and hope that Chu Xiu would keep his promise. Chapter 1129. After Chu Xiu returned to Cangnan Prefecture, the first thing he did was to begin closed-door training to study, listen to the spring rain. Other martial artists of Kangwu Prefecture, such as Su Fengshan and the others, were curious about what Chu Xiu had been doing during this time and why Kucha had disappeared, but they did not dare to ask Chu Xiu. With the incident of Chu Xiu killing Sun Qiancheng and Moriha, their awe of Chu Xiu had reached the extreme. He was ruthless, vicious, and strong. No one dared to provoke such a superior. In the closed-door training chamber, Chu Xiu held "Listen to the Spring Rain" in his hand and felt the situation of the blade. Unfortunately, the spirit of "Listen to the Spring Rain" had completely dissipated, but there was still a little imprint left on this supreme divine weapon. Chu Xiu wanted to touch those imprints to see if he could find any martial techniques or magical powers from it, but he did not find anything. It was as if the scene he saw when he held "Listen to the Spring Rain" for the first time was the only complete imprint on the blade. Putting "Listen to the Spring Rain" and "Break the Formation" together, Chu Xiu could clearly feel that the power of the same origin on the two blades was attracting each other. Chu Xiu touched his chin. He had an idea, which was to merge "Listen to the Spring Rain" and his "Break the Formation" into one. Both were natural blades born in the primitive demon cave, and the materials were exactly the same. Moreover, the spirit of "Listen to the Spring Rain" had dissipated, so there would be no conflict between the two. It was just that his idea could not be realized in the Daoist Empire. Khanate items could only be smelted with Khanate items. Even if the two could be smelted together, it would require the rootless sacred flame. Therefore, for now, he had to find the way back to the lower realm first, and that way was the path that Mahakala Deity Palace had taken before. With the current strength of the Black Net tribe, it could be regarded as a major force in the southern barbarian land. Chu Xiu was also prepared to let it find clues about that place. However, according to the things recorded by Moriha, the barbarians who discovered the passage to the lower realm lived in the depths of the southern barbaric land. There were many coordinates written, but Chu Xiu couldn't understand them. Therefore, before he left, he threw it to He Jia and the others, asking them to investigate the place. Even if they had never been there before, they would still be able to find it. Once they found the place, they would inform Chu Xiu. This was the good thing about the barbarians. Chu Xiu was very reassured to use them to do things. This group of honest fellows wouldn't play any tricks. Moreover, they didn't ask why. Since he asked them to do it, they just did it. No one dared to ask Chu Xiu why he wanted to find that place. In their opinion, it was their honor to be able to work for the divine envoy. There was no need to worry about the problem here for the time being, so Chu Xiu entered the state of closed-door cultivation safely. After coming to the Daoist for so long, Chu Xiu had never seriously gone into closed-door cultivation. The only time he did was when he was in the Nine Phoenix Sword sect, but he didn't go into closed-door cultivation for too long. It was simply a waste of such a good environment in the Daoist. Chu Xiu went into closed-door cultivation for a whole month. Su Fengshan and the others in the outside world were dumbfounded. They had never seen such a prefectural governor. After he came, he either appeared and disappeared mysteriously or went into closed-door cultivation. He didn't do any proper work at all. The Imperial Sky Pavilion sent this lord to be the prefectural governor. They simply put him here as a memorial. More than a month later, Su Fengshan and the others received an encrypted message from the Nan'an prefecture. It was sent by Kucha, which stunned them. The Nan'an prefecture was no longer under Jianghu County's jurisdiction. Therefore, even the communication formation there had been removed. But now, Kucha had set up a communication array formation there, and had even specifically taught it to Chu Xiu. No one knew what they were up to. Although everyone was puzzled, they had no choice but to wake Chu Xiu up and pass the message to him. After taking a look at the content of the message, it was actually very simple. The people from the Black Luo tribe had found the place Chu Xiu was looking for. Therefore, they informed Chu Xiu that he could go there at any time. After putting the message away, Chu Xiu looked at Su Fengshan and the others, who seemed to want to say something but were hesitating. He said calmly, "Just say what you want. I won't eat people." Everyone present thought to themselves, "You won't eat people, but you will kill people." Su Fengshan was the oldest among them, so Chu Xiu was rather polite to him. Therefore, Su Fengshan said in a low voice, "Sir, as the prefectural governor, you can't just ignore the matters in Jianghu County. Although you're good friends with young Master Lu, you know about the situation in the Imperial Sky Pavilion. It's hard to guarantee that the Deputy Pavilion Master won't look for trouble with you." Chu Xiu glanced at Su Fengshan and said, "Interfere? What matters in Jianghu County do I have to interfere with? Even the Pavilion Master couldn't investigate the previous prefectural governor's death. How am I supposed to investigate? He's already dead. What can I do even if I investigate? Can he still come back to life? As for Cold River City, I haven't seen anyone from Cold River City coming to provoke us. It won't be too late for us to make a move after they make a move. As for the barbarians, you don't have to worry. From now on, as long as I'm here, the barbarians won't riot. There are caravans heading to Nanman. As long as they don't go too deep, they'll be fine." Hearing what Chu Xiu said, everyone was stunned. Actually, among these matters, the most troublesome matter was that group of barbarians. That group of barbarians could be said to be fearless even if they were killed, and they refused to submit after being beaten. Appeasement didn't work either. If they were forceful, they would still resist. Therefore, they would cause some trouble every few days. Yet now, Chu Xiu said that they didn't need to bother about those barbarians anymore. Where did he get the confidence to say this from? However, looking at Chu Xiu's confident look, they didn't dare to ask further. Chu Xiu waved his hand and said, I still have to make a trip to Nanman. Elder Su, you're the oldest here and have the most experience. I'll let you make the decision. If there's any major matter, put it aside for now and wait for me to come back to deal with it. After he finished speaking, Chu Xiu left right away. After Chu Xiu left, everyone looked at each other. Qin Zhong said hesitantly, is it true that the prefectural governor said that he has already dealt with the people in Nanman? Su Fengshan said uncertainly, maybe. Although this prefectural governor's actions are unfathomable, who has ever seen him boast? Shen Hui, who was at the side, thought about it and said, why don't I organize a caravan to enter Nanman to take a look later? In the other counties of the Imperial Sky Pavilion, most of the income from the offerings came from the local martial arts sections. However, Kangwu County was different. Although it wasn't small, most of it was wrapped in dense forests, and there were very few martial arts forces. Therefore, they might not even be able to support the martial artists in Kangwu County, let alone the Imperial Sky Pavilion's headquarters. Therefore, Kangwu County's real source of income still relied on trading various Nanman specialties and ferocious beasts with the barbarians. Su Fengshan nodded and said with a sigh, let's give it a try then. If others encountered a superior who was willing to delegate power and did not care about anything, they would probably wake up laughing even in their dreams. However, when it came to Chu Xiu, why did they feel such a pain in the ass? In the Nan'an prefecture, Kucha reported to Chu Xiu about the Black Luo tribe's movements during this period in detail. When the people from the Black Luo tribe were helping Chu Xiu to look for that place, they did not slack off or take advantage of the opportunity. However, the barbarians from the Black Luo tribe were just a little straightforward, but they were not really stupid. After obtaining such great power, of course, they wouldn't continue to obediently guard their own little territory and live their lives. Therefore, during this period of time, apart from splitting a part of their forces to help Chu Xiu look for that place, the rest of their forces were attacking other tribes that had enmity with the Black Luo tribe or tribes that they disliked. They would annihilate them using the excuse that they worshipped the evil god. Naturally, they did not kill all of them like before. Instead, they followed Chu Xiu's instructions. They would recruit those who could surrender, and those who could become slaves would become slaves. If they were really stubborn, they would kill them right away. Therefore, the size of the Black Luo tribe had more than doubled within a short period of a month. Moreover, the Black Luo tribe had been constantly fighting during this period of time. Therefore, the number of barbarian warriors who could comprehend the yuan qi of heaven and earth had increased by more than 10. They were all waiting to be blessed by Chu Xiu's god's gift. The Black Luo tribe had grown to such an extent that even Kucha was frightened. He was afraid that Chu Xiu would go overboard. However, Chu Xiu was completely confident. He was the only one who possessed the method to greatly increase the strength of these barbarian race warriors. Moreover, apart from He Jie, Chu Xiu had also left behind a very, very small change when he had used his true fire of inner strength on the others. This was Chu Xiu's trump card. However, it would be best if he did not use it. These barbarians were actually very useful. Chu Xiu did not want to lose such a good fighter. After listening to Kucha's report, Chu Xiu followed Kucha to the Black Luo tribe. After not seeing him for a month, Kucha's aura had increased a little. It was obvious that he had adapted to his current strength. Seeing Chu Xiu arrive, Kucha laughed and said, Lord Messenger, you have finally come. Some of our warriors have comprehended the power of God. They can receive the gift now. Kucha's mouth twitched. These barbarians were really straightforward. They basically said whatever they thought. Even if they really hoped that Chu Xiu could bring them power, they could not say it so bluntly. Chu Xiu did not mind. After helping the Black Luo tribe increase their strength, he asked the Black Luo tribe's people to bring him to the place recorded in Moriha's notes. 500 years ago, there was only one barbarian living in this place. Because of his bloodline, he did not belong to any tribe. It could be said that he was a rare rogue cultivator among the barbarians. Therefore, after 500 years, there were no longer any traces of anyone living here. Chu Xiu compared some of the terrain recorded in the information to this place. The Black Luo tribe's people had not found the wrong place. This was the place. However, with this place as the center, Chu Xiu searched the area within a radius of 10 li. However, he found nothing. There was not a single clue. Chapter 1130. Although Chu Xiu knew that it would not be easy for him to find the entrance to the lower realm, otherwise the Sanskrit people would have found some clues already. However, after spending so much effort to find nothing, although Chu Xiu was not depressed, he was definitely not in a good mood. Although there were no clues, Chu Xiu was not in a hurry to go back. As the palace master of the fantasy heavenly royal palace, Moriha was a proper high-ranking member of the Sanskrit sect. The information and clues that he carried with him would definitely not be wrong. If there was really a mistake, then the Sanskrit sect had made a mistake 500 years ago. Therefore, there must be something missing in the information. The Sanskrit sect had searched for a total of 500 years, and it was especially so during the last period of time. Moriha, the palace master of illusionary heavenly palace, had personally searched for this place. With his level in illusionary arts, it was not difficult for him to sneak into the berserkers and search for this place. Therefore, whether it was the people of the Sanskrit or Chu Xiu, they might have found this place, but they did not find anything. However, compared to the Sanskrit, Chu Xiu's only advantage was that he controlled the Black Luo tribe, which was a large barbarian tribe, and he could use it to do many things. Of course, the barbarians knew more about the barbarians. In the Black Luo tribe, Chu Xiu found He Jia and asked, about the barbarians, those lone barbarian warriors, do you know about them? He Jia nodded and said, of course, most of them are very pitiful. Either their tribe had been exterminated, or they had committed some unforgivable crime and were chased out of the tribe. It is very difficult to live alone in the forest, especially for those who have lost the protection of their ancestors and gods. Of course, the gods they worship are false gods, so they will not protect them. Chu Xiu stroked his chin and said, if, and I'm just saying if, you were expelled from the tribe and had to live alone in the depths of the Dilua mountain range, where would you go the most, apart from the place you live? He Jia touched his head. With his simple mind, it was difficult for him to think about this question. After all, when he was young, he was the most outstanding warrior in the entire Black Civ tribe. Later on, he even became the tribe leader. How could he possibly think about being expelled from the tribe? At this time, Green Jade walked in and said, Lord Oracle, I have some ideas. The strength of the warriors of the entire Black Luo tribe had been greatly enhanced. Although Chu Xiu hadn't found a way to enhance the strength of a priest like Green Jadeite, she seemed to have obtained some benefits from the extermination of the other tribes. Green Jadeite's aura had become stronger than before. There were also a few more colorful necklaces around her neck, which should be the spoils of war from killing other tribes' priests. Of course, when most men saw Green Jade, they would first look at her figure and directly ignore those necklaces that exuded extraordinary aura. Green Jade walked in front of Chu Xiu and said, Lord Oracle, it can be said that our tribe's attachment to our ancestors is irreplaceable, especially when the false gods we worship haven't shown any miracles. The existence of our ancestors is the spiritual sustenance of our tribe. Therefore, no matter if those barbarian warriors were exterminated or expelled from the tribe, even if they have a great hatred towards the people of the tribe, their ancestors are the supreme existence in their hearts. Anyway, if it were me, no matter where I go, I would never forget to go to the ancestral land to worship the ancestors every year. He Jia looked at Green Jade in surprise. Why would you think of this? Green Jade said with some embarrassment, when I was young, every time I was naughty, my master would say that if you couldn't inherit the position of the priest, you would have to throw me out. At that time, I believed it to be true. I even secretly planned how to live if I was really expelled from the tribe. I even secretly prepared a small backpack for emergencies. Chu Xiu looked at Green Jade in surprise. He didn't expect this young priest to be so cute when she was young. Of course, she had also developed well now. Is your ancestral land in your own camp? He Jia shook his head and said, no, our ancestral land is where our ancestors live. My clan relies on the forest to survive. When we harvest all the resources and beasts in an area, we need to move to another place. However, our ancestral land will never change. No matter how far we go, we will never forget where our ancestral land is. Chu Xiu nodded and gave the information of the barbarian rogue cultivator to He Jia. He said, go and find out which tribe this person belonged to and where his tribe's ancestral land is. He Jia looked at the information with a hint of difficulty in his eyes. It wasn't that he didn't want to help Chu Xiu, it was just that this matter was a bit too difficult. Chu Xiu could ask him to kill people, but he really wasn't good at finding people. It should be said that it was very difficult to find a person from 500 years ago in the barbarian tribe because the barbarians didn't have the habit of recording things. The barbarians had their own written language, but it was extremely crude. In most barbarian tribes, only the priests knew this crude language. The rest of the barbarians didn't even know how to write their own names. Therefore, if they wanted to find a person, they could only rely on one word, memory. If it was a recent person, with the current reputation of the Black Luo tribe, they could send someone to ask a big tribe and they would probably get some clues very quickly. However, it was extremely difficult to find someone from 500 years ago. At this time, Green Jade rushed to say, Lord Divine Envoy, don't worry. Leave this matter to us. We will definitely give you an answer within 10 days. The corners of Chu Xiu's mouth curled into a smile and he said, very good, I like people who are efficient. I will wait for your news in the South Peace province. After Chu Xiu left, He Jia said doubtfully, Green Jade, you should know how difficult it is to find a person from 500 years ago in our tribe. Although Green Jade was a priest, she was only a junior in front of He Jia. Therefore, when there was no one around, He Jia would call her by her name. Green Jade shook her head and said, no matter how difficult it is, we have to do it because this is the Lord Divine Envoy's order. Patriarch, don't forget that the only person who can give us power is this Lord Divine Envoy. Lord Divine Envoy is the incarnation of God's will, but he also has another identity. He followed God's order and gave us the opportunity obtained by our ancestors. However, don't forget that if he wants to give this power to others, he can also do it. He Jia was silent. It was obvious that he understood the reason behind this. Ever since Chu Xiu revealed the miracle, He Jia and Green Jade didn't doubt Chu Xiu's identity. However, they didn't doubt this. They felt that some of Chu Xiu's actions didn't seem to be the orders of God. It seemed to be his own will, his will as the county governor of Jianghu County. Green Jade and He Jia noticed this, but they didn't say anything. This was because God's power was in Chu Xiu's hands. According to God's will, he could give power to the Black Civ tribe, but he could also give power to the other barbarian tribes. Therefore, they had to be respectful to Chu Xiu. It could even be said that they had to listen to Chu Xiu's orders. If they couldn't even handle such a small matter, what use would Chu Xiu have for them? Realizing this, the entire Black Civ tribe was mobilized. They temporarily put aside their plans to attack other tribes and gathered information for Chu Xiu. When faced with tribes that were weaker than them, they directly went to interrogate and coerce them. When faced with tribes that were stronger than them, they took out items to exchange. Finally, in less than 10 days, they managed to gather all the information they needed. In the Southern Peace Prefecture, He Jia said to Chu Xiu with a troubled expression, My lord, I've found the place you're looking for. However, it's a little difficult for you to go there. Oh? Why? He Jia said, because that place is the territory of the southern barbarian tribe's Runo tribe. The Runo tribe is the most ferocious tribe in the southern barbarian land. Normally, no one is willing to provoke them. Chu Xiu asked doubtfully, isn't that place the ancestral land of other tribes? How did it become the Runo tribe's territory now? He Jia explained, after a region's resources are plundered, it might return to its original state after a few hundred or a few thousand years. If your tribe is still around, you can return to your ancestral land. However, if your tribe is no longer around, it's normal for it to be occupied by others. That tribe has already been annihilated, and the Runo tribe's strength has skyrocketed over 300 years ago, becoming the largest tribe in the southern barbarian land. Hence, their territory has also expanded greatly, and they have occupied that place. Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said, that's easy. That Runo tribe worships evil gods and blasphemes the true gods. They need to be annihilated and purified. Tribe leader He Jia, is this difficult? If you have any difficulties, you can tell me. I'll get someone else to do it. After all, there are many people of God. He Jia clenched his teeth and said, there's no difficulty. The Runo tribe wasn't weak. Even though the Black Net tribe's strength had skyrocketed, they weren't willing to go against a large tribe like the Runo tribe. If they were to really fight, He Jia didn't even have a 50% chance of winning. However, since Chu Xiu had already put it this way, he had no other choice but to agree. Of course, Chu Xiu didn't mistreat them. Chu Xiu also got Kucha to give them quite a number of the armors and weapons produced by the Imperial Sky Pavilion. All the humans knew that the barbarians coveted the armors and weapons forged by human blacksmiths. Hence, almost all the sects would intentionally control the trading volume of armors and weapons. They couldn't sell too much, but they couldn't sell too little either. Hence, the prices would be very high. Now that Chu Xiu was around, he didn't care about these things. Finding the way back to the lower realm was the most important thing. Hence, he armed the entire Black Net tribe and headed straight for the Runo tribe. Chapter 1131. Recently, the Black Luo tribe had been very high profile among the barbarian tribes in the southern barbaric lands. It could even be said that everyone knew about them. No one knew what had gotten into them, but they kept accusing the other tribes of worshipping evil gods and that only the Black Luo tribe worshipped true gods. Then, they used this as an excuse to attack the other tribes in a frenzy. Most importantly, the Black Luo tribe's strength had suddenly skyrocketed. This was simply incomprehensible. The Black Luo tribe was located on the outskirts of the southern barbaric lands, while the Runo tribe was located deep in the southern barbaric lands. Both sides had never crossed paths before. Therefore, when the Black Luo tribe attacked, the Runo tribe's leader was stunned. He had no idea what the other party was up to. The Runo tribe's leader was slightly different from the other barbarian tribes' leaders. The other barbarian tribes' leaders were all muscular men. However, the Runo tribe's leader was tall and skinny. He was not used to wearing battle armor. Instead, he wore a beautiful black robe produced by the humans. He looked like a priest. When the Runo tribe's leader heard the report from his subordinates, he snorted and said, "Is the Black Luo tribe trying to unify the southern barbaric lands? How arrogant! Our Runo tribe is not a small tribe that can be bullied. Since the Black Luo tribe dares to come, don't even think about leaving." As he spoke, the Runo tribe's leader immediately led his men and charged out. Chu Xiu did not take part in this battle. However, he followed behind the Black Luo tribe. If the Black Luo tribe was not strong enough to annihilate the other party, it would not be too late for him to lend a hand. However, when he saw the Runo tribe's barbarian warriors, Chu Xiu suddenly frowned. It was not because the Runo tribe's barbarian warriors were too powerful, but because there was something wrong with the things they had. Chu Xiu had given the Black Luo tribe many armors and weapons in his capacity as a member of the Imperial Sky Pavilion. However, the Runo tribe had even more weapons and armors. Moreover, their quality was even higher than what Chu Xiu had given to He Jia and the rest. The battles of the barbarians had always been very simple. They didn't need to arrange their troops or arrange their formations. They would just start fighting directly. It was the same this time. However, this time, the strength of both sides was a little too close. After fighting for a full hour, there was still no clear victor. However, both sides had suffered heavy casualties. At that moment, the Runo tribe's chief saw that his tribe had suffered heavy casualties. He immediately shouted, "High Priest!" As the voice of the Runo tribe's tribe leader faded, the high priest of the Runo tribe, who was hidden in the depths of the tribe, immediately activated the formation. In an instant, all the warriors of the Runo tribe on the battlefield were enveloped by a layer of silvery white light. Meanwhile, the warriors of the Black Sieve tribe were enveloped by a layer of black qi that continuously corroded and devoured their power. Chu Xiu's expression suddenly changed. This was definitely not a power that the barbarian tribe could control. It was a formation of the human tribe, and a formation that was specially created to deal with the barbarian tribe. Although the Runo tribe's chief was skinny, his strength was shockingly great. The silvery white, glowing blade in his hand slashed downwards, carrying with it the sound of a dragon's roar. His blade was a supreme-grade weapon. Previously, after He Jie's bone hammer had been shattered, Chu Xiu had gotten him an inferior-grade weapon hammer. It wasn't that Chu Xiu was stingy, but a weapon like a hammer had always been a niche weapon. Unless it was specially refined, there were very few of them. The huge war hammer collided with the seemingly fragile blade, causing a huge crack to appear on the war hammer in He Jie's hand. He Jie was also struck by the sharpness of the blade, causing him to spit out blood. At that moment, the blade light that resembled a bright moon descended. The invincible and powerful blade intent immediately repelled the Runo tribe leader, who had wanted to continue attacking. The Runo tribe leader's strength was extraordinary. Even with Chu Xiu's current strength, it wouldn't be easy to get rid of him completely. Just now, Chu Xiu had actually wanted to join forces with He Jie to attack him. However, in the end, Chu Xiu had given up on that idea. He was now a divine envoy. How could a divine envoy attack others? Most importantly, he wanted to give He Jie and the rest the impression that only he, Chu Xiu, could save them at the critical moment. He Jie first bowed to Chu Xiu, then said with an ashamed look, "Sir Divine Envoy, He Jie is useless." Following that, He Jie glared at the Runo tribe leader and said furiously, "I didn't expect the Runo tribe to use the human race's array formation. We definitely can't learn the human race's array formation. For you to be able to use it, you must have colluded with the human race." The Runo tribe leader also sneered and said, "You're still talking about me? Who's that standing beside you? Isn't he also a helper of the human race? No wonder the Blacknet tribe developed so rapidly. I didn't expect you to collude with the human race." He Jie sneered and said, "Sir Divine Envoy is detached from worldly affairs. He isn't just a human race." "What Divine Envoy? He Jie, I think you're seriously ill." The Runo tribe leader snorted coldly and surveyed his surroundings. With a wave of his hand, he ordered the Runo tribe to retreat and expand the array formation to envelop the entire tribe. The Runo tribe leader wasn't afraid of Chu Xiu and the rest, but the losses would be too great if they continued to fight. Both sides were evenly matched, and the Divine Envoy's strength was unfathomable. If they continued to fight, the Runo tribe would really face the risk of being exterminated. As for Chu Xiu, there was nothing he could do for the time being. Chu Xiu wasn't good at breaking arrays, and the level of this array formation wasn't low. If Chu Xiu directly used his strength to break the array formation, he would end up in a very sorry state. There were array masters in Jianghu County, but Chu Xiu didn't want them to know about this for the time being. Hence, he gave up on the idea of finding people from Jianghu County. When He Jie saw this scene, he couldn't help but ask, "Lord Divine Envoy, now that the Runo tribe has surrounded themselves in this array formation, what should we do?" Chu Xiu said calmly, "There's no rush. We can attack them by force, but it will cause the Black Net tribe to suffer heavy losses. We can just surround them here. Keeping the array formation activated will consume a lot of energy. The Runo tribe won't be able to hold on for long. He Jia was extremely touched when he saw that Chu Xiu was actually thinking about the Black Net tribe's warriors. Chu Xiu didn't care about this. He suddenly asked, "Do you know what happened during the previous barbarian uprising?" Ever since he became the prefectural governor, everything Chu Xiu had done was for his own benefit. What did the previous prefectural governor's death have to do with him? He had no obligation to avenge his predecessor. However, he remembered that Lu Sanjin had mentioned that Cold River City had participated in the previous barbarian uprising. Chu Xiu couldn't help but suspect that the Runo tribe had a lot of equipment and arrays. He Jia knew of Chu Xiu's identity and thought that he was going to reprimand them. Therefore, he quickly said, "Lord Divine Envoy, the Black Net tribe didn't participate in the previous uprising." Chu Xiu said, "I know that you didn't participate. I'm just asking about the situation." When he heard Chu Xiu's words, He Jia heaved a sigh of relief and said, "Actually, the previous prefectural governor wasn't a bad person. When he was around, he didn't really invade the Dilua mountain range. Instead, he traded many things with us at a fair price. However, I don't know what happened that time, but many tribes were provoked. Moreover, each tribe had a different reason. Everyone gathered together, and it was a mess. I don't know why they started fighting. The people from the Imperial Sky Pavilion seemed to have killed the people from the other tribes first. After that, a chaotic battle ensued. A few tribes attacked at the same time. In the chaos, no one knows who killed the previous prefectural governor." When he heard He Jia's words, Chu Xiu was almost certain that even if Cold River City was not involved in the previous barbarian uprising, there were still other forces involved. With the brains of these barbarians, they wouldn't be able to come up with such tactics. "You stay here and guard. There's no need to fight the Runo tribe head-on. You just need to keep them here. I'll return to the Nan and prefecture first." If Cold River City was truly behind all of this and Chu Xiu was about to destroy the Runua tribe, it was hard to guarantee that no one would step forward to stop him. He had to stop those people in time. He had to destroy the Runo tribe. If the passageway to the lower bound was here, then Chu Xiu had to firmly occupy this place. At this moment, in the Runo tribe's high priest asked, "Chief, why aren't you continuing to attack? Is that God's envoy from the Black Luo tribe really so powerful that even you can't defeat him?" In other tribes, the high priest's status was usually higher than the chief. However, in the Runo tribe, the chief of the Runo tribe was wise and decisive. Therefore, his prestige was even higher than the high priest's. The chief of the Runo tribe said with a dark expression, "I can't see through that guy's strength. Although we didn't really fight, my instincts tell me that he's very dangerous. He's just like those venomous wolves in the forest that don't look big but can tear tigers and leopards apart. Moreover, even if I can defeat him, the people from the Black Luo tribe are attacking like madmen. I don't want the entire Runo tribe to die. Those cunning outsiders from Cold River City have obtained enough from my Runo tribe. It's time for them to do something. Use the formation they left behind to request for reinforcements. Ask them to come and help me. If they don't come, I'll spread the news of them plotting to kill the previous prefectural governor of the Imperial Sky Pavilion. I'll make sure that Cold River City and the Imperial Sky Pavilion fight to the death." A hint of ruthlessness flashed in the eyes of the chief of the Runo tribe. He didn't act like a barbarian. Instead, he acted more like a human. He didn't place as much importance on things like trust and honor as the other barbarians. At this moment, in Lingluo County, which was close to Kangwu County, in a tall tower that belonged to Cold River City, a Cold River City deacon was reading the news from the Runo tribe. He immediately shouted furiously, "Those damned barbarians! What do they take our Cold River City for? They're hired thugs? To think that they want our Cold River City to participate in the internal strife of the barbarians. This is preposterous. There were quite a number of Cold River City's upper echelons in the tall tower. When they saw the news, their expressions turned ugly. Chapter 1132. Cold River City was a large sect, but at the same time, it was also a small sect. Cold River City's sphere of influence was not even one-third the size of the Imperial Sky Pavilion. 80% of the Daoist sects were ancient sects that had existed for more than 10,000 years. Sects like Cold River City that had only risen in the past few hundred years were very few. Therefore, Cold River City could only rely on seizing power from the Imperial Sky Pavilion, High Heaven Sect, and other large sections. Lingluo County used to belong to High Heaven Sect, but now it belonged to Cold River City. Now, Cold River City wanted to make Jianghu County theirs. Over the years, the Imperial Sky Pavilion's strength had been declining year by year. The Imperial Sky Pavilion's control over Jianghu County had also been declining year by year. Therefore, Cold River City's arrangements in the entire Jianghu County had not been established in just a year or two. The Runhua tribe had only developed with the support of Cold River City. Many cultivators of Cold River City were furious when they received the news. Without them, how different would the Runhua tribe be from the other barbarians that lived in the forest? It was because of their Cold River City that they were able to achieve what they had today. Now, the Runhua tribe dared to threaten them to attack. They did not expect these seemingly honest barbarians to be so treacherous and cunning. Everyone present turned their gazes to the middle-aged cultivator sitting at the head of the table. He wore a Daoist robe and had a rather sage-like appearance. Cold River City did not have a county governor, but the other party was the ruler of the entire Lingluo County. He was also the Cold River City elder Yi Tianqing who had planned the barbarian tribe's uprising. Yi Tianqing had two identities. He was the nephew of the current Cold River City lord, Yi Weikong. His other identity was an ancient venerable expert, the in-name disciple of the galaxy unfettered cultivator, Meng Xinghe. His cultivation and strength had been taught by the two martial immortals, Yi Weikong and Meng Xinghe. He was very extraordinary. When he saw the news, Yi Tianqing said in a deep voice, "This group of greedy barbarians should indeed be taught a lesson. We must let them know that they must not be greedy. However, that's a matter for the future. When it's time to act, we still have to act." Among the entire southern barbarian tribes, there are not many tribes that are willing to submit to Cold River City like the Runhua tribe. If we were to sit back and watch the Runhua tribe be destroyed, it would be a waste of effort to nurture another Runhua tribe. Let's deal with their enemies first. Then, we'll settle the score with those barbarians after Cold River City has completely taken control of Jianghu County. The other martial artists of Cold River City nodded. At this time, the martial artist who read the news suddenly said, "Elder, when we entered the southern wilderness before, we all entered from the Nan'an prefecture. However, I heard that the new prefectural governor has reclaimed the southern peace prefecture as part of the Imperial Sky Pavilion's territory. Why don't we take a detour through the southern region?" Yi Tianqing waved his hand and said, "If we take a detour around the southern region, even with our speed, it will take us more than 10 days. The Runhua tribe might be exterminated by the time we arrive. I've heard of the new county governor of Jianghu County. He's quite famous in the Eastern Territory recently. He's the successor of Gu Zun and even defeated Xianyuan Wushuang of High Heaven Sect in public. However, this kid was still young after all. Did he think that everyone was Xing He's loose cultivator? He actually dared to accept any position. He shouldn't have come to Jianghu County." At the same time, the Imperial Sky Pavilion actually sent a true fire spirit refinement realm martial artist to Jianghu County. This is enough to prove the Imperial Sky Pavilion's current weakness. Ever since the old pavilion master went into seclusion, the two heroes of the Imperial Sky Pavilion were not on good terms. No one in the middle-aged generation could shoulder the responsibility. In the younger generation, Lu Sanjin is not bad, but that's all he is. The Imperial Sky Pavilion is no longer a concern. You don't have to worry about his identity as the successor of Gu Zun. Let's enter from the Nan Prefecture. Let's see what he can do. Yi Tianqing was not arrogant. He was confident. In fact, in the beginning, Cold River City was only probing to encroach on Jianghu County's territory. However, perhaps because the previous prefectural governor was old, he prioritized stability and tolerated every step. He actually had no intention of going head-on against Cold River City. This method helped to inflate Cold River City's arrogance. In the end, the previous prefectural governor actually plotted to kill him. Later, when Li Wuxiang personally came, Yi Tianqing and the others were indeed perturbed. They were even prepared to ask Yi Weikong for help. In the end, Li Wuxiang did not fall out with them. He only massacred a few barbarian tribes to vent his anger. This also allowed Cold River City to see the Imperial Sky Pavilion's actual strength. It was not that the Imperial Sky Pavilion did not want to fall out with them. It was just that they could not afford to do so. With this confidence, they would not be afraid even if Lu Sanjin, who was the Eastern Region Wayfarer, or Jiangzong, who was a veteran in the metaphysic realm of heaven and earth, came, let alone Chu Xiu. In the Nan Prefecture, Su Fengshan and the others were dumbfounded. They did not know why Chu Xiu called them here. Chu Xiu was the least responsible prefectural governor they had ever met. At the same time, although they were not used to Chu Xiu's act of delegating power in the beginning, they actually felt very relaxed when they saw that the barbarians in Jianghu County had finally settled down. But this time, Chu Xiu had called all of them, as well as all the martial artists in Jianghu County, to the South Peace Prefecture. They were really a little confused about this. Could it be that Chu Xiu was going to annihilate the barbarians? Su Fengshan mustered up his courage and asked, "Sir, what are we going to do?" Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said, "The people of Cold River City will cross the border. Jianghu County is the Imperial Sky Pavilion's territory. How can we let the people of Cold River City come and go as they please?" Everyone was stunned. Su Fengshan asked, "The people of Cold River City will cross the border? Why would they come to Jianghu County for no reason? Where did you get the news from, sir?" Chu Xiu pointed at his head and said, "Intuition." Everyone was speechless, but no one dared to say anything. Actually, Chu Xiu didn't lie to them. He was really relying on his intuition. Once the barbarians started fighting, they would fight to the death. However, the Runo tribe stopped fighting halfway and even erected a defensive formation. If they didn't have a trump card, why would they do that? Thinking about the death of the previous county chief and the equipment of the Runo tribe, Chu Xiu was 90% sure that Cold River City would intervene in this matter. To Chu Xiu, it wasn't important whether he could find the way back to the lower bound within the territory of the Runo tribe. What was important was that the way back to the lower bound was through the southern barbaric lands. Therefore, the entire southern barbaric lands had become his exclusive property in Chu Xiu's heart. He couldn't allow others to encroach on it, not even Cold River City. Su Fengshan and the others looked helpless. They didn't know what Chu Xiu wanted to do, but they could only accompany Chu Xiu and wait here. However, on the second day, Kucha hurriedly came to report, "Lord, a disciple reported that the people of Cold River City have indeed crossed the border and entered the southern prefecture's territory." Su Fengshan and the others were stunned. Cold River City had really come. At the same time, they subconsciously glanced at Kucha. Since when did this kid become official Chu's confidant? During this period, it seemed like official Chu would bring him along whenever he did something. Sensing their gazes, Kucha let out a bitter laugh. He didn't become the confidant willingly, but was forced to. Chu Xiu didn't care about their thoughts. He waved his hand and said, "Do it." At the border of the southern prefecture, Yi Tianqing looked at the dilapidated southern prefecture and couldn't help but shake his head. The Imperial Sky Pavilion is already old. This prefecture's border with the southern barbaric lands obviously has a great use, but it was abandoned by the Imperial Sky Pavilion. What a waste. In the future, Cold River City will take over this place and conduct large-scale trade with the barbarians. On one hand, we can increase our own strength, and on the other hand, we can restrict those stupid barbarians. At this moment, a cold voice rang out. Even if Jianghu Prefecture belongs to Cold River City in the future, this place is under my jurisdiction now. Yi Tianqing frowned when he saw Chu Xiu bringing over 100 elite martial artists from the Imperial Sky Pavilion. Someone had warned him before that the new county governor of Jianghu Prefecture was not a kind person. Although Yi Tianqing looked down on Chu Xiu, he kept a low profile and only brought over a dozen people with him. In any case, it was enough to settle the matter with the Runhua tribe. Who would have thought that Chu Xiu would seem to be waiting for him here? How did he know that he was coming? Yi Tianqing was only slightly stunned. Then, he laughed and said, "The county governor of Jianghu Prefecture, Chu Xiu? Chu? This humble Daoist has heard of your name, Chu. Come to think of it, we do have some ties. Chu, you're Gu Zun's successor, and I'm a layman disciple of Xinghe Unfettered's line. We can be considered Gu Zun's successor's line. Chu, you should be able to see what the Imperial Sky Pavilion looks like since you've been here for so long. It's rotten and on the verge of collapse. There's nothing to look forward to in a sect like this. Why don't you join Cold River City, Chu? What Cold River City can give you is definitely more than what the Imperial Sky Pavilion can give you." Chu Xiu raised his brows. This Yi Tianqing was a weirdo. He came to question him, but in the end, Yi Tianqing came to recruit him instead. If it were in the past, Chu Xiu might have agreed right away. After all, he had a deal with the Imperial Sky Pavilion. He would go to whichever side offered the highest price. However, now that he knew the way back to the lower realm was in the southern barbaric land, the position of Jianghu Prefecture's county governor was set in stone for Chu Xiu. Moreover, he had to hold it firmly in his hands. Chu Xiu smiled, and so did Yi Tianqing. He thought that Chu Xiu was moved. "Gu Zun's successor. Are you worthy? It's not too late to retreat now." The smile on Yi Tianqing's face gradually disappeared. "What did you say?" Chu Xiu took a step forward and said expressionlessly, "I said, are you worthy to say that you're Gu Zun's successor? Gu Zun has always only had one successor. The others are all eliminated and are just trash. You're just a layman disciple. You're not even as good as those who were previously eliminated. Are you worthy to use this title to flatter yourself? Also, I'm in charge of this place. Regardless of whether you're from Cold River City or some sect, if you don't retreat now, then leave your life here." Chapter 1133. As an expert in the mysterious enlightenment realm of heaven and earth, he was also a high-level official of Cold River City and a junior of City Lord Yi Weikong. With so many halos on him, when Yi Tianqing was young, he was also a person favored by the heavens. But what Chu Xiu said just poked at his sore spot, evoking the inferiority complex in his heart in the past. Given Yi Weikong's past relationship with Meng Xinghe, Yi Weikong had once considered introducing Yi Tianqing, the most outstanding disciple among the younger generation of the Yi clan, to Meng Xinghe. He wanted to see if Yi Tianqing could become Gu Zun's successor. In the end, Yi Tianqing failed and did not even have the chance to try. Meng Xinghe only accepted him as a nominal disciple out of respect for Yi Weikong. In fact, he did not teach him the secret techniques of the Xinghe unfettered cultivator. He only taught him some common martial arts. Yi Tianqing had been brooding over this matter for the rest of his life. Now that he was being ridiculed by a genuine successor of the ancient sovereign like Chu Xiu, Yi Tianqing's anger was instantly ignited. "Kid, the ship of the Imperial Sky Pavilion is about to sink, but you just have to be stubborn. You're courting death." As soon as Yi Tianqing's voice fell, Chu Xiu had already made his move. The piercingly cold saber radiance slashed directly at him as if it was going to split the world. If you don't retreat, then spare your life. What's with all this nonsense? Although Chu Xiu was one level lower than Yi Tianqing did not underestimate Chu Xiu too much. He had always treated Chu Xiu as a martial artist of the same level. After all, he was also a nominal disciple of the ancient sovereign and knew how harsh the ancient sovereign selection criteria were. However, after Chu Xiu slashed with his saber, he realized that he had actually underestimated Chu Xiu. Apart from the fact that he did not have a domain, what was the difference between him and an expert of the heaven and earth enlightenment realm with this kind of power and powerful saber intent? Yi Tianqing waved the horsetail whisk in his hand, and the originally clear sky was instantly covered in frost and snow. The piercingly cold wind turned into whistling sword qi and rushed toward Yi Tianqing. As soon as the domain was set up, killing intent instantly swept everywhere. At the same time, Su Fengshan and the others were still fighting with the people of Cold River City. Actually, Jianghu County's forces weren't that strong. Su Fengshan was old, Shen Feng was mediocre, and Kucha was powerful, but he only had one martial skill. Only Qin Zhong could barely make it. However, Jianghu County had the advantage in numbers. Even if they attacked together, they wouldn't be afraid of the other side. When facing a martial artist with a lower realm than him, Yi Tianqing immediately set up his own domain. Although this was somewhat imprudent, it was undoubtedly the most effective. Unfortunately, his opponent was Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu's attack easily tore apart the frost snow domain, which was already chilly to begin with. Under the attack of Chu Xiu's attack, it was easily torn apart by an even more chilly power. Yi Tianqing was stunned. He had been cultivating for so long, but this was the first time he had seen such a strange situation. His domain was actually torn apart by this guy in front of him. As the sharp blade fell, Yi Tianqing turned the horsetail whisk in his hand, and the powerful Gang Qi turned into tiny sword threads, entangling Chu Xiu's blade. Tempered steel had become soft, and every strand of sword Qi was extremely sharp. However, at this moment, it had condensed into a ball and turned into the shape of a horsetail whisk. The power had become extremely gentle, but it was also extremely tough. The world devastation fire in Chu Xiu's hand burned fiercely and shrouded Yi Tianqing along the sword threads. The saber intent of the break formula directly slashed out, and countless sword threads were torn apart. The powerful saber also followed the sword threads and slashed toward Yi Tianqing. Chu Xiu's powerful foundation made Yi Tianqing's expression suddenly change. What kind of monster was he? Was this the power that a true fire spirit refinement realm could possess? It was said that Xianyuan Wushuang of the High Heaven sect was a monster, and the foundation of the true fire spirit refinement realm was even comparable to the supreme experts of the profound enlightenment realm. However, Chu Xiu in front of him had defeated Xianyuan Wushuang. This guy's foundation of strength was even more monstrous than that of a monster. The saber of the break formula directly slashed down, and countless ice crystals condensed into a shield in front of Yi Tianqing. However, it did not even block the saber intent of the break formula for a moment. The extremely powerful sharpness cut through heaven and earth, and the sound of ice crystals shattering rang out. Yi Tianqing's body was directly cut into pieces by Chu Xiu's saber. However, at this moment, Chu Xiu immediately turned around and formed the colorless fixing palm emblematic gesture in front of him. Yi Tianqing's body was directly cut into pieces of broken ice, but behind Chu Xiu, Yi Tianqing held a curved, sword-like weapon in his hand, and directly stabbed at Chu Xiu. The colorless fixing palm emblematic gesture slashed down, and Yi Tianqing's body was once again destroyed, but it also turned into a pile of broken ice. At the same time, two figures of Yi Tianqing attacked from both sides, forming two kinds of emblematic gestures, and smashed at Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu heaved a sigh of relief. As expected, these heaven and earth abstruse realm powerhouses from large sects were not easy to deal with, regardless of whether it was the celestial zenith or the lower realms. At this realm, there was not a single weakling, and every single one of them had some trump cards. At first, Chu Xiu thought that Yi Tianqing was good at illusion, but he did not find anything wrong even though he had improved the heaven's sun gazing at air skill to the extreme. When the heaven's sun gazing at air skill was pushed to the extreme, he could even see the flaws of the top illusion Great Master Moriha, but now he could not see through Yi Tianqing, which proved that what he used was not an illusion. Although Yi Tianqing's domain had been shattered by Chu Xiu, all the water vapor in this part of the world could be condensed into ice and used as his incarnation. After comprehending heaven and earth, Yi Tianqing was hiding in this part of the world, but as long as there was a trace of water in this part of the world, Chu Xiu would not be able to find his real body. Seeing that both sides were attacking, Chu Xiu snorted coldly. He formed a seal with his hands, and a powerful devil aura swept around him. In midair, the sound of ghosts and gods wailing descended, and the heavens cried blood rain suddenly fell. In the endless blood rain, everything was being destroyed and melted, except for one area that did not change at all. Found you. In midair, the demon god tore the void apart and directly grabbed at the open space. In that area, Yi Tianqing's figure appeared. Seeing the demon god's giant hand grabbing at him, a trace of horror appeared in his eyes. Under the devil's cry great compassion mantra, all of his changes had nowhere to hide. Yi Tianqing used his fingers as a sword, and the boundless chill around him condensed into a huge ice crystal longsword. It constantly absorbed the chill and water vapor around it, and in an instant, it soared to dozens of feet long. Slash! As Yi Tianqing shouted, the huge ice crystal longsword suddenly fell, but it was directly grabbed and shattered by the demon god's giant hand. However, Yi Tianqing's body was shrouded in a layer of extremely cold domain. Frost and snow filled the sky, and the huge ice crystal longsword slashed down one after another. Finally, when the demon god's giant hand arrived in front of him, it was completely destroyed. His domain could not envelop Chu Xiu, but it was not a problem for him to envelop himself. However, in the face of a martial arts technique like the Great Compassion Mantra, Yi Tianqing also found it difficult to deal with it. Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes. The strength of Yi Tianqing in front of him was the standard of an ordinary heaven and earth illuminating realm expert. Whether it was the foundation of his strength or his control of the power of his martial arts, it was maintained at an average level. Fighting with such an opponent, Chu Xiu could let go of his true strength. It was not like the last time when he fought with Moriha. He clearly had a whole body of strength, but he could not use much of it. Every move was extremely dangerous. Above the formation, the pitch-black apocalyptic fire and the golden-silver internal force true fire burned and bloomed together. As the Misty Slash's saber momentum fell, the saber intent froze the void, and a powerful force directly crushed toward Yi Tianqing. In these few moves when fighting with Chu Xiu, Yi Tianqing did not even have the slightest upper hand. He even felt a little suppressed, which was absolutely intolerable for Yi Tianqing. He pinched a seal with his hand, and a Dharma idol appeared behind him. It was like an ancient demon god, with an astonishing cold air around it. Although its face could not be seen clearly, a large ice storm roared out between its breaths. Although Yi Tianqing always wore a Taoist robe, held a horsetail whisk, and dressed like a Taoist priest, in fact, his martial arts had nothing to do with Taoism. He dressed like this because he was obsessed with not being chosen by Meng Xinghe in the past. A layman disciple was still a disciple. In fact, his martial arts inheritance was still the martial arts of Cold River City, which exerted the power of ice to the extreme. Looking at all the major sects from the East Domain, whether it was the High Heaven sect or the Imperial Sky Pavilion, their martial arts were extremely firm and powerful. The same was true of Cold River City. The ice god idol behind Yi Tianqing broke free from the shackles of the Misty Slash. It put its palms together and grasped the extremely sharp blade of the Misty Slash. Under the attack of Chu Xiu's blade, the ice god idol's arms shattered inch by inch. But in the next moment, 4 arms immediately extended from the Dharma idol. Fists, palms, and fingers formed a seal. The 4 arms turned into 4 different martial arts techniques, and they all came crashing down on Chu Xiu. Sheathing his blade and performing a seal, a huge 2-faced Buddha Dharma idol appeared behind Chu Xiu. On the left, the great black heavenly demon god had a ferocious and angry expression. Boundless world-destroying flames burst forth from the 3 eyes on the top of its head. On the right, the Mahavirokana Dharma idol was solemn and dignified. It held the great light seal in its hand, and a scorching Buddhist light shone like a falling sun, illuminating the ages. The 2 powerful flames of different attributes merged into one and collided with Yi Tianqing's ice god idol. The huge waves that erupted instantly caused the ground under their feet to be melted by the scorching power, and then completely frozen by the power of ice. After going back and forth a few times, the ground was even turned into dust. Su Fengshan and the others from the Imperial Sky Pavilion and Cold River City retreated, watching the scene of the 2 fighting in horror. This was especially so for Su Fengshan and the others. Apart from Kecha, they had never seen Chu Xiu fight with his full strength. When he killed Sun Qiancheng, Chu Xiu only used 1 move. When he killed Moriha, they only saw the result because of the illusory realm, but not the process. But now that they saw Chu Xiu's true power, it was so powerful that it made them despair. Chapter 1134. Yi Tianqing and Chu Xiu had already used their full strength. In fact, Yi Tianqing was not at a disadvantage, but his expression was already very gloomy. Was it glorious to compete with a true fire spirit refinement realm martial artist in terms of strength and foundation, and to be evenly matched with a junior who was much younger than him? This was a disgrace. Their Dharma idols dissipated. Yi Tianqing frowned and said, "I have underestimated you. Previously, I thought that the Imperial Sky Pavilion sent you to Jianghu County to be the county governor because there was no one else in the Imperial Sky Pavilion. Now, it seems that you are indeed worthy of this position. You are even stronger than most of the county governors in the Imperial Sky Pavilion." Chu Xiu said indifferently, "So, you are prepared to retreat in the face of difficulties?" Yi Tianqing smiled and said, "Retreat? What I mean is that you are just qualified to make me use my trump card. If it were anyone else, they would retreat directly and enter the southern barbaric lands from the southern region since they could not make it through. There was no need to fight to the death with Chu Xiu here." However, Yi Tianqing was different. As a member of the Yi clan of Cold River City and a layman disciple of Galaxy Unfettered cultivator Meng Xinghe, Yi Tianqing was a famous expert in the eastern region. If he retreated from Chu Xiu now, it would be a great blow to his reputation. The annihilation of the Runua tribe would only cause him more trouble. The price he had paid to nurture the Runua tribe all these years could be said to be in vain. However, if he retreated now, it would be a loss to his reputation. Compared to the survival of the Runua tribe, he valued his reputation more. The other Cold River City martial artists were also very helpless when they saw Yi Tianqing's expression. They knew Yi Tianqing's character. It was useless to advise him on this matter. Once he became serious, no one could stop him. They could only hope that Chu Xiu's side could not hold on and retreat first. Otherwise, their side would be wiped out before they could finish fighting. Yi Tianqing's cloud-patterned robe was extremely luxurious. However, he tore it apart, revealing an ice-blue close-fitting armor covered in strange demonic runes. In the blink of an eye, the demonic patterns on the armor began to shine. The demonic patterns even spread to his face, causing his entire temperament to change. This expert, who had a sage-like temperament, was currently showing a cold and sinister aura. In the next moment, Yi Tianqing's body shot out like a cannonball. His speed was extremely fast. As his fist fell, all the water vapor and cold air around Chu Xiu condensed and trapped Chu Xiu like a cage. The array-breaking technique swept out, shattering a large number of ice crystals. Yi Tianqing used his own fist to block the power of the array-breaking technique. Instantly, Countless ice crystals swept out, blasting Chu Xiao back by dozens of feet. The combat style of the ancient demon gods? Chu Xiao frowned slightly. He had never seen his opponent in such a state. Although Yi Tianqing's current fighting style seemed to be that of an expert who had cultivated his body to the extreme, in reality, his body was not as strong as Chu Xiao's. It could only be said that it was slightly stronger than ordinary warriors. However, all the cold power and water vapor around Yi Tianqing had integrated into his body. When Chu Xiao fought with him, it was as if he was fighting against the power of this world. Yi Tianqing was even able to absorb the extreme yin power that was formed by breaking the array and returning to its origin. In the Daoist Ocean, there are not many warriors who can force me to use the divine ice armor. You should be proud. Yi Tianqing's eyes bloomed with cold-blooded ferocity and a violent and excited fighting spirit. Although he was desperately suppressing it, it still subconsciously affected his spirit. The armor on his body was not only armor, but also the martial arts he cultivated. It had been connected with his blood, flesh, and meridians. It was said that this thing was a fragment of the armor of the ancient demon gods in the past, and it had the innate power of the ancient demon gods. Yi Tianqing originally wanted to make it into a weapon, but he took a different approach. He made it into armor, and then refined it with his flesh and blood. Finally, he could control the powerful power inherited from the ancient demon gods. The ancient demon gods were born and could naturally control the power of heaven and earth without cultivating, because they were the embodiment of heaven and earth. Yi Tianqing could also achieve this state by relying on the divine ice armor. However, he was inevitably affected by the mark of the demon gods left on the divine ice armor. Every time he used it, he needed a great deal of willpower to suppress this situation. Therefore, he would not use the divine ice armor easily. Now that he used it on Chu Xiao, it was obvious that he had used all his trump cards. Chu Xiao was forced to retreat step by step. In this state, Yi Tianqing could not be defeated by force. Even the saber intent of the breaking formula, which was so powerful and sharp, could not cut Yi Tianqing, who had integrated with heaven and earth. Moreover, the more they fought, the fiercer Yi Tianqing's attacks became. He was completely immersed in this state, and he even faintly fell into madness. Yi Tianqing's eyes were scarlet. He made a seal with his hands. In an instant, with him as the center, everything within 1,000 feet froze in the cold. The blood around Chu Xiao's body also started to freeze under this power. This caused him to be shocked. He raised the power of the blood demon power to the extreme and the blood around his body started to burn crazily. Yi Tianqing's seal could even affect Chu Xiao, let alone the others below. The cultivators from the Royal Heaven Pavilion and the Cold River City had already stopped their attacks. They watched Chu Xiao and Yi Tianqing, who were fighting, in shock. They started to resist the powerful force that could freeze any water with all their might. Someone from the Cold River City stamped his feet inside. Why did His Excellency use the Ice God seal? Is this Chu Xiao really so difficult to deal with? How could he force His Excellency to this extent? They were all Yi Tianqing's trusted subordinates, so they naturally knew what was going on with Yi Tianqing. At this time, Yi Tianqing had exerted his power to the extreme, but the most important thing was that Yi Tianqing, in this state, might not even be able to control himself. In the past, when the Cold River City had just risen, Yi Tianqing had used this state to fight with others. However, at that time, there were other experts of the Cold River City beside him, who could stop him in time when he went crazy. But now, there was only him here. How could he stop him? In this state, when Yi Tianqing went crazy, he would even kill his own people. At this time, Chu Xiao also felt that it was a little tricky. He also realized that among the Daoist people who could cultivate to the mysterious realm of heaven and earth did not seem to be normal. Previously, when Moriha was like that, he thought that Yi Tianqing was more normal, but who would have thought that Yi Tianqing could also use this state? Merging with heaven and earth, controlling heaven and earth, and freezing water into ice. This was a kind of natural rule power of heaven and earth. Except for the rule power of the same level, no other power could resist it. Thinking of the word rule, Chu Xiu's eyes suddenly bloomed with a hint of brilliance. That was a move that he did not want to use now. It was a trump card that he was prepared to use to win in a life-and-death battle. However, looking at Yi Tianqing's current state, if he did not use that move, the other party would still continue to pester him. He was courting death. The saber will of the break formula slashed out, and the powerful sharpness temporarily stopped Yi Tianqing. Strands of extremely pure devil qi wrapped around Chu Xiu's body, madly absorbing the power around him. In an instant, his body rapidly grew to a height of 10,000 feet, like a real demon god that could support the heaven and earth. Law phenomenon. Yi Tianqing's divine ice armor could allow him to merge with heaven and earth and turn into the rule power. The supernatural power itself was an external evolution of the rule power. Only the rule power could be broken. Chu Xiu had only used the supernatural power of the law phenomenon once when facing the 7 nailhead arrows. There was no need to learn the supernatural power. As long as it was imprinted in his mind, he could master it. It was not like martial arts, where there was any great mastery or minor mastery. However, in the Daoist, Chu Xiu had never used it before. The reason was that the power consumed by the supernatural power was simply beyond imagination. Last time when he faced Mariha, if it were not for the fact that the other party's illusion was too unsolvable, and that Chu Xiu was not sure if he could break it by force, he would have used this supernatural power. At this time, once the law phenomenon was used, all the power in Chu Xiu's body seemed to be boiling and burning. The powerful force filled Chu Xiu's body, and it seemed that if he did not vent it in the next moment, he would explode. With a punch, the huge figure that was thousands of feet tall smashed down. It was as if an ancient demon god could shatter mountains and split seas. Layers of ice crystals appeared around Yi Tianqing's body, but under Chu Xiu's punch, they shattered inch by inch. The demon god armor on his body was also instantly torn apart, revealing his bloody upper body. Yi Tianqing suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His crazed eyes regained clarity, but his heart was also filled with despair. Supernatural power. How can it be a supernatural power? Yi Tianqing recognized the supernatural power, but it was clearly something that only a few martial immortals could control. How could it be controlled by Chu Xiu? As the punch landed, Chu Xiu's body shrank by half, and he punched again. Yi Tianqing roared, and all the blood and qi in his body burned. Even a scorching golden flame appeared behind his head. It was because Yi Tianqing knew how terrifying the supernatural power was that he burned his essence, blood and primordial spirit together. However, at the next moment, as Chu Xiu's punch landed, the entire space seemed to collapse in an instant, and then reorganized itself. There was no sound in the silence, and there were no changes. However, Yi Tianqing's body had already disappeared. He had been directly smashed into nothingness by Chu Xiu's punch. It could be said that there was not even a speck of him left. After the punch, Chu Xiu's body also became like a deflated ball, returning to its original size. However, it was difficult for him to even stand. Previously, when facing the head-piercing 7 arrows, Chu Xiu had to use the blood demon transformation technique and primordial spirit ignition before he could throw out 4 punches. Now, using the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth to throw out 2 punches was already his limit. Chapter 1135. Yi Tianqing was blasted into nothingness by Chu Xiu's lawful embodiment of heaven and earth. Everyone present was dumbfounded. This was especially so for the people from Cold River City. They all wore dumbfounded expressions. They had clearly come to reinforce the Runua tribe. How did they end up giving their lives away? This group of people was stunned for dozens of breaths' time before someone finally reacted and turned to flee. Yi Tianqing was already dead. Could it be that they still had to face the godlike terrifying Chu Xiu here? Chu Xiu took a deep breath and glanced at Su Fengshan and the others. He said calmly, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and chase after him." "What are you waiting for?" Hearing Chu Xiu's words, Su Fengshan and the others seemed to react and immediately gave chase. However, there was little effect. They had not pulled too far away from the cultivators of Cold River City to begin with. Now that they were focused on escaping, it was quite taxing for them to chase after them. By the time they returned, Chu Xiu's side had also recovered some strength. Remarkable powers were a manifestation of the laws of heaven and earth. However, it was too difficult to control a law of heaven and earth with the power of a human. The amount of power needed to do so was simply beyond everyone's imagination. Yi Tianqing thought that only martial immortals could control remarkable powers. This was actually wrong. Whether one could control remarkable powers depended on one's talent. However, whether one could use remarkable powers depended on one's strength. Even with the strength and foundation of a profound understanding of heaven and earth expert, it was extremely difficult for them to use remarkable powers. Su Fengshan carefully walked to Chu Xiu's side and said, "Milord, you killed Yi Tianqing this time. I'm afraid there will be trouble. Yi Tianqing's identity is extraordinary. He is a direct descendant of the Yi clan of Cold River City. Furthermore, he is a layman disciple of the unfettered Xinghe." Chu Xiu asked, "Is this the territory of my Imperial Sky Pavilion?" Su Fengshan was taken aback. Then, he said, "Yes." "Then does Cold River City have a grudge against my Imperial Sky Pavilion?" Su Fengshan gave it some thought before saying, "There should be. Back when Cold River City was rising up, they frequently opposed our Imperial Sky Pavilion. Now, Cold River City is also in constant conflict with our Imperial Sky Pavilion." Chu Xiu said calmly, "I killed a powerhouse from an opposing force in the Imperial Sky Pavilion's territory. This is clearly a meritorious deed. What trouble is there?" Su Fengshan smiled bitterly. He really couldn't figure out whether Chu Xiu really didn't understand or was pretending to not understand. That being said, the Imperial Sky Pavilion did not want to fall out with the Cold River City. Otherwise, when the previous prefectural governor died, the Imperial Sky Pavilion would fall out with the Cold River City even if they had no evidence. However, Su Fengshan didn't dare to say anything more. After witnessing Chu Xiu's power, they couldn't afford to have any other thoughts. In the face of absolute power, all they could do was obey. The people from Cold River City didn't dare to cross the line for now. Chu Xiu could deal with the Runo tribe without any worries. However, after unleashing the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth, Chu Xiu was exhausted. He didn't plan to help the Black Luo tribe kill someone. Therefore, he asked Kucha to bring him to Heijia and let him use it to deal with the Runo tribe's leader. The Runo tribe's leader wasn't much stronger than Heijia. The reason he could defeat Heijia previously was because of the supreme-grade weapon that Cold River City had given him. However, no matter how supreme-grade that weapon was, could it be better than Chu Xiu's supreme-grade formation-breaking weapon? Moreover, Chu Xiu wasn't worried that Heijia would have any thoughts about the formation-breaking weapon. Firstly, he didn't dare to do so. Secondly, the formation-breaking weapon's spirit was personally refined by Chu Xiu. It was already integrated with his bloodline and had his mark on it. Whoever he wanted to use it could only use it. Otherwise, the backlash from the weapon's spirit wouldn't feel good. After obtaining the formation-breaking weapon, the Runo tribe's formation was also depleted. However, there were no reinforcements from Cold River City. Helplessly, the Runo tribe's leader could only fight the Black Luo tribe head-on. In the end, he was killed by Heijia, who wielded the formation-breaking weapon. The Runo tribe was also devoured and destroyed. Chu Xiu didn't see any of this. He had been recovering in the county governor's manor. It was Kucha who brought the formation-breaking weapon to Chu Xiu and told Chu Xiu everything. After listening to Kucha, he thought for a moment and asked, "Is there any news from the other barbarians?" Kucha was stunned and said, "No, it's the same as before." Chu Xiu really couldn't figure out what these barbarians were thinking. He also didn't know if they were united or if they were fighting amongst themselves. When facing other tribes, even if it was two tribes that had previously fought each other badly, they could still unite to fight against the enemy. However, the Black Luo tribe had risen so arrogantly in the entire southern barbaric lands. They had wiped out several tribes in a row, but the other tribes didn't react at all. This was too strange. If it was a human sect, they would probably feel sad and be prepared to unite to fight against the enemy. Tell the Black Luo tribe to seal off the territory of the Runo tribe. Don't allow anyone to enter. At this moment, Chu Xiu had yet to completely recover his vitality. Chu Xiu planned to wait until he had completely recovered before going to investigate. At this moment, Cold River City was located in the easternmost part of the eastern region, Dongshan County. The reason why Cold River City was named Cold River City was because it was built on a large river in the eastern region, the Xuanlong River. Cold River City took a different approach and built a huge bridge on the Xuanlong River. At the same time, the city was also located on the bridge. Inside the main hall, the martial artists of Cold River City who had survived from the hands of Chu Xiu were trembling as they recounted what had happened to the old man sitting in the main seat. It was an old man wearing a black dragon robe. His face wasn't too old, and even his hair wasn't completely white. However, the ravines on his face were as if they had been carved by a blade, looking slightly cold. This person was the city lord of Cold River City, Yi Weikong. More than 300 years ago, he had joined hands with Meng Xinghe and stirred up the entire eastern region. He was one of the two most dazzling people in the eastern region and even the entire Daoist. Starting from scratch, being able to snatch food from the mouths of those large sects that had existed for tens of thousands of years, and forcibly establishing a foundation like Cold River City, no matter how one looked at it, he was an outstanding person of the present age. Even though Yi Weikong was now old, in the eastern region, he was still as famous as before. Listening to the report of his subordinates, Yi Weikong's face didn't change in the slightest. There was no sadness or joy on his face, as if the person who had died was not a mysterious Enlightenment realm expert of Cold River City, nor a descendant of the Yi clan that he was most optimistic about. However, when he heard the words, successor of Gu Zun, a trace of reminiscence appeared in his eyes. When he met Xiao Meng, he and Xiao Meng seemed to be just as young and in the prime of their lives. He just didn't know how his old friend, who was also his only friend, was doing after so many years. Seeing Yi Weikong pondering there, no one dared to say a word. In Cold River City, Yi Weikong was the god, and his words were the law. No one could question him, and no one could question him. This was the prestige that he had built up in Cold River City. After a long while, Yi Weikong said lightly, "What do you think?" Someone said cautiously, "City Governor, Yi Tianqing was too rash in this matter. He was in the wrong in this matter. It's fine if he went to the Imperial Sky Pavilion's territory, but he even fought to the death when he was intercepted. Although he was the one who died in the end, there's nothing we can say if this matter is brought to the Imperial Sky Pavilion." Yi Tianqing was a little arrogant, and he wasn't very likable in Cold River City. Moreover, Cold River City was indeed in the wrong in this matter. They couldn't find a reason to ask the Imperial Sky Pavilion for an explanation. Yi Weikong said lightly, "Reason? When has Cold River City ever been reasonable? Send someone to tell the Imperial Sky Pavilion that Cold River City wants an explanation for this matter. If they don't give it to me, I'll go and get it myself." As soon as he said that, the people below immediately stopped talking. No matter if this matter was reasonable or not, if Yi Weikong said it was reasonable, then it was reasonable. In the Imperial Sky Pavilion's meeting hall, the old pavilion master, Li Wuxiang, Zhong Qiushui, and the rest of the Imperial Sky Pavilion's upper echelons were present. However, all of them looked grim. Not long ago, someone from Cold River City came to the Imperial Sky Pavilion and arrogantly demanded an explanation from them. This was simply a humiliation. Li Wuxiang had held it in for a long time, which was why he was not so angry that he killed that person directly. Moreover, this matter was very troublesome. Chu Xiu killed a heaven and earth illuminating mystic realm powerhouse from an enemy sect. This should have been a good thing. However, the awkward thing was that the Imperial Sky Pavilion currently had no intention of falling out with Cold River City. The reason was simple: they had no chance of winning. If the Imperial Sky Pavilion was prepared to fall out with them, they would have done so when the previous prefectural governor died. Why would they wait until today? The old pavilion master sighed and said, "Tell me, what do you plan to do about this matter?" Li Wuxiang frowned and said, "It's difficult. Cold River City is very aggressive. I'm afraid they're certain that the Imperial Sky Pavilion is currently in a weak state and don't dare to fall out with them. However, it's impossible for us to give them an explanation. The Imperial Sky Pavilion has stood for the Daoist for tens of thousands of years. Do we have to apologize to them? It's also impossible for us to hand over Chu Xiu. If we sacrifice our own people for the sake of Cold River City, we'll also offend the martial immortal behind him. Why bother?" The old pavilion master turned his gaze to Zhong Qiushui again. "Qiushui, tell me your opinion." Zhong Qiushui said calmly, "I have no opinion. Back then, you were the old pavilion master. You made the decision to let him go to Jianghu County. Now that something has happened, what can I think?" Lu Sanjin, who was standing at the side, said, "In the past, when we faced the people from Cold River City, the Imperial Sky Pavilion always gave way. Now that Brother Chu has finally killed a heaven and earth illuminating mystic realm powerhouse and helped the Imperial Sky Pavilion raise our prestige, how did this become a troublesome matter?" Zhong Qiushui cast a glance at him and said with a cold smile, "You're thinking too simply. If I could kill him casually, I'd be able to crush someone like Yi Tianqing to death in 3 moves. What divine ice armor? It's just a superficial thing that's tainted with a shred of the rules of mystical power. However, killing one will attract a whole group of them. If we really start a war with Cold River City, will the martial immortal behind Chu Xiu really step out and help the Imperial Sky Pavilion?" Chapter 1136. The Imperial Sky Pavilion discussed for a long time, but they still couldn't come up with a countermeasure. Faced with such a situation, they couldn't decide whether to fight or not. In the end, Li Wuxiang could only say, "Send someone to ask Chu Xiu what he's thinking. He's the one who caused the trouble, so he should solve it himself. He has a martial immortal expert behind him. If we can make that martial immortal expert take action, Cold River City will most likely hold back from taking action." Hearing Li Wuxiang's words, most of the Imperial Sky Pavilion's cultivators nodded in agreement. After all, the Imperial Sky Pavilion really didn't want to start a war with Cold River City. Zhong Qiushui's lips curled up into a disdainful smile. He despised hypocrites like Li Wuxiang the most. He could either be tough and fight Cold River City to the end, or he could be completely shameless and throw Chu Xiu out to shut Cold River City up. He, on the other hand, was in such a dilemma. He might offend both sides. Lu Sanjin wanted to say something, but the old pavilion master waved his hand at him. Li Wuxiang immediately ordered a few attendants to go to Nanman, and the crowd dispersed. After everyone left, Lu Sanjin said to the old pavilion master in dissatisfaction, "Old pavilion master, why didn't you let me speak just now? One must be moral. Some things can be done, and some things can't be done. Whether one can do something or not depends on one's own heart, not on what the world says. You were the one who taught me those words. Brother Chu is considered my friend, and I was the one who introduced him to the Imperial Sky Pavilion. This time, Brother Chu helped us kill the people of Cold River City, but they still put on such an attitude. Is this considered moral?" The old pavilion master sighed and said, "You have to understand Wuxiang. He's the pavilion master now, so he has to make the decision. When Cold River City rose, I fought with Yi Wei Kong. To be honest, I'm not as good as him, and I'm not as good as Meng Xinghe. Although Meng Xinghe has gone into seclusion to become his Xinghe unfettered cultivator, I'm already old. Although Yi Weikong isn't young anymore, his combat power can still be maintained at its peak. The Imperial Sky Pavilion situation is worsening. Under such circumstances, it's very normal for Wu Xiang to make such a decision. Lu Sanjin had a sullen expression on his face. Initially, he felt proud when he found out that Chu Xiu had killed Yi Tianqing. After all, he was the one who had recruited Chu Xiu into the Imperial Sky Pavilion. He felt proud as well. Who would have thought that things would end up like this? This was unacceptable to him. Old Pavilion Master, I'm going to Jianghu County, Lu Sanjin suddenly said. The old Pavilion Master gave it some thought before saying, all right, go ahead then. You can also tell Chu Xiu about the current situation in the Imperial Sky Pavilion. After Lu Sanjin left, the old Pavilion Master let out a long sigh. He turned around and took out a stone slab. He began to draw on it and began to deduce the cultivation method. Originally, with his age, the old Pavilion Master could totally retire at this time. However, the tree longed for peace, but the wind would not stop. Cold River City was pressing on, so he had no choice but to take action. However, the old Pavilion Master was old after all. He was not as useful as Li Wuxiang when it came to fighting to the death with Cold River City. Therefore, he had no choice but to find another way and put in effort in other areas. For example, he used the martial arts experience he had accumulated over the past 500 years to deduce a few cultivation methods that could restrain Cold River City. In front of the county governor's manor in Jianghu County's Cangnan Prefecture, Lu Sanjin and a middle-aged man dressed in a golden brocade robe stood at the entrance with over 10 attendants. Uncle Master Lin, Brother Chu is Gu Zun's successor and not a disciple of the Imperial Sky Pavilion. Therefore, he doesn't understand the situation in the Imperial Sky Pavilion. I hope you can understand later. Lu Sanjin looked at the person in front of him with a slight headache. He did not expect Li Wuxiang to send this person to Jianghu County. Lin Songhai was an elder of the Imperial Sky Pavilion. Although he was only slightly older than Li Wuxiang, his seniority was actually higher than Li Wuxiang's. He was famous in the Imperial Sky Pavilion for being stubborn. The disciples were most afraid of him. It would have been better if Li Wuxiang had sent someone with a better temperament, but in the end, he sent Lin Songhai. Lu Sanjin was rather displeased with the Pavilion Master. At this moment, Su Fengshan happened to come out of the county governor's manor. When he saw Lu Sanjin and Lin Songhai, he quickly bowed and said, "Young master, why didn't you and Elder Lin greet us before coming?" Lin Songhai said indifferently, "Why would I greet you? Could it be that you have some shameful things that you need to hide?" Su Fengshan immediately swallowed the rest of his words. Although he already knew that this person was not easy to get along with in the Imperial Sky Pavilion, he had never interacted with Lin Songhai before. Now, he finally saw it for himself. Su Fengshan laughed awkwardly and said, "The two of you have come from afar. I'll go inform the Lord now and hold a welcoming dinner for you." Lin Songhai waved his hand and said, "There's no need. We're here to ask some questions. We'll leave after we're done." As he spoke, Lin Songhai strode into the inner hall. Su Fengshan slapped his thigh. He knew that this matter would not be resolved so easily. Others might not know the situation in the Imperial Sky Pavilion, but how could he not know? Therefore, the moment Chu Xiu killed Yi Tianqing, Su Fengshan knew that this matter was a little bad. The bad thing was not in Cold River City, but in the Imperial Sky Pavilion. However, now that they were here, and Chu Xiu was not going to listen to advice, he could only follow them in. He hoped that the two of them, who were both extremely domineering, would not fight. In the Great Hall, Chu Xiu had already sensed the aura outside. Therefore, he came out of seclusion and waited for the two of them. Of course, he had almost recovered from the exhaustion after unleashing his supernatural power. "Brother Lu, ever since I came to Jianghu County, you've never come to see me. Are you here to inspect my Jianghu County this time? Chu Xiu asked with a smile. Before Lu Sanjin could speak, Lin Songhai said stiffly, Chu Xiu, now is not the time to chat. The pavilion master only wants me to ask you one thing. You killed Yi Tianqing, and now Cold River City wants an explanation from the Imperial Sky Pavilion. How should this matter be resolved? The smile on Chu Xiu's face gradually disappeared. He looked at Lu Sanjin and said calmly, Brother Lu, who is this? Lu Sanjin coughed and said, Brother Chu, please don't take offense. This is Elder Lin Songhai of the Imperial Sky Pavilion. The matter of you killing Yi Tianqing is indeed a little troublesome. How should I put this matter? Lu Sanjin, who had always been eloquent, was at a loss for words. It was not that he did not know what to say, but he was too embarrassed to say it. At this moment, Lin Songhai waved his hand and said, There's no need to explain. I'm just here to ask for an answer. Why? You've killed him, but you don't want to care about the aftermath? Chu Xiu sneered and said, Do I need to care about the aftermath? Elder Lin, you people are cultivating peacefully in the Imperial Sky Pavilion while we are the prefectural governors outside. Do you know the price we have to pay to guard the Imperial Sky Pavilion? As the new prefectural governor of Jianghu County, I only have two missions. One is to investigate the cause of the death of the previous prefectural governor, and the other is to suppress the development of the barbarians. I've accomplished both of these. The previous prefectural governor was instigated by the barbarians in Cold River City. Cold River City killed a prefectural governor of the Imperial Sky Pavilion, and I killed another prefectural governor of the Heaven and Earth Insight Realm from Cold River City. There's no return, and it's just a balance. Why? Is it still wrong for me to do this? As for the barbarians, they're now completely under my control. As long as I'm in Jianghu County, those barbarians can forget about causing any trouble. I've done what the prefectural governor should do, and I've also done what the prefectural governor shouldn't do. May I ask, Elder Lin, what else do you need me to do? Lin Songhai frowned. He did not like sharp-tongued people like Chu Xiu. However, it was indeed inappropriate for him to say anything about the incident in Cold River City because it was equivalent to exposing the Imperial Sky Pavilion's shortcomings. If Chu Xiu's incident had happened when the Imperial Sky Pavilion was at its peak, he would have made a great contribution. Now, however, he had attracted a great deal of trouble. Therefore, Lin Songhai snorted and picked on Chu Xiu's slip of the tongue. He said, You're boasting shamelessly. The barbarians' chaos hasn't been completely resolved even after 10,000 years. You've only been here for a short period of time, and you dare to say that you've completely controlled the barbarians? Chu Xiu said indifferently, Why wouldn't I dare? The prefectural governor of Jianghu County is in charge of this. Now that I'm in control of Jianghu County, of course, I have to do it to the extreme. Elder Lin, do you believe that whichever barbarian tribe I kill now, that tribe's chief and priest won't live to see the sun the next morning? Lin Songhai sneered. What nonsense! I want to annihilate the Yi tribe in the south right now. Can you do it? Lin Songhai had been to the south before, and he had even exchanged blows with some of the barbarian experts. The Yi tribe was a barbarian leader whom he had exchanged blows with when he came to suppress the riots in the south. The barbarian leader was also a large tribe in the south. Chu Xiu waved his hand and said to Su Fengshan, Send my order to Kucha. Tell him that I want to see the heads of the Yi tribe's chief and priest placed in front of my table before noon tomorrow. Although Su Fengshan didn't know what Chu Xiu meant, he knew that Chu Xiu and Kucha had secretly made some arrangements. Since Chu Xiu had said so, he would do as he was told. Kucha didn't know the situation. Anyway, under Chu Xiu's instructions, he had already destroyed more than 1 or 2 barbarian tribes. The Yi tribe wasn't too strong, so it was easy to deal with them. The Black Net tribe was now a sharp knife in Chu Xiu's hand. If he wanted to annihilate a tribe, it could be said that the time it took to kill people was not as long as the time it took to travel. Upon receiving Chu Xiu's message, the Black Net tribe immediately accused the Yi tribe of blasphemy and prepared to annihilate them. Within the county governor's mansion, Chu Xiu said to Lin Songhai, "Elder Lin, do you want to go down and rest? The heads you want will only be delivered tomorrow." Lin Songhai sneered, "I will wait here. Let's see what tricks you have up your sleeves." Chu Xiu shrugged his shoulders and had someone serve him tea. Then, he took out a martial immortal expert's book and slowly read it. Lin Songhai forcibly waited there for an entire day. Lu Sanjin could only helplessly watch the two of them compete. When it was almost noon the next day, Lin Songhai coldly snorted. Just as he was about to say something, Kucha walked in while panting while carrying a box. He opened the box and revealed the two heads of the barbarian tribe. He panted and said, "My lord, the heads you want are here." Chapter 1137. Kucha was actually a little dumbfounded because he didn't know how the Iger tribe had provoked official Chu to the point that he couldn't wait to kill them. Therefore, he didn't delay and even followed the He Luo tribe to destroy the Iger tribe. Then, he hurriedly sent the heads over. He used his fastest speed and only lacked the blood escape. Kucha was the one who came in contact with Chu Xiu the most among all the warriors in Jianghu County. However, it was also because of this that he knew how terrifying Chu Xiu was. He didn't dare to disobey Chu Xiu's words. Chu Xiu wanted him to deliver the head before noon, so he had to deliver it before noon. He didn't dare to delay at all. When he finally sent the things, he found that Lu Sanjin and Lin Songhai were also here. He didn't recognize Lin Songhai, so he was still dumbfounded. He didn't know who this heaven and earth mysterious realm powerhouse was. Lin Songhai looked at the two heads in the box. He had fought with the patriarch of the Iger tribe before, so he naturally recognized him. Because of this, he couldn't hide the horror in his heart. That was a powerhouse who was almost comparable to the heaven and earth mysterious realm powerhouse of the human race. He was also the patriarch of a large tribe in South China. In the end, he died here because of a sentence he said in a fit of pique yesterday. This scene seemed a little unreal no matter how he looked at it. He raised his head with difficulty and looked at Chu Xiu in disbelief. He asked, "How did you do it?" Chu Xiu said lightly, "Elder Lin, don't worry about how I did it. Isn't everything I did in the southern barbaric land competent enough? I did what the other prefectural governors should do and what the other prefectural governors shouldn't do. I only killed Yi Tianqing, and the Imperial Sky Pavilion wants to ask me for an explanation? It's ridiculous. There's no point in being the guest. Since the Imperial Sky Pavilion wants an explanation from me, all right then. At most, I'll return to the mountain forest and cultivate diligently. You can just push the blame onto me." Hearing that, Lin Songhai hurriedly said, "Official Chu, hold on, that's not what I meant." However, the Imperial Sky Pavilion was in a precarious situation at the moment, so they were a little flustered. "Don't worry, I'll report everything you've done in Jianghu County to the higher-ups. I'll absolutely not let official Chu suffer any grievances." After saying that, Lin Songhai left in a hurry, afraid that Chu Xiu would say something like leaving the Imperial Sky Pavilion again. Lin Songhai was just stubborn and inflexible. He wasn't an idiot who didn't know what was good for him. To be able to decide the life and death of a large tribe in the southern barbaric land with just a word like Chu Xiu, this could be said to be something that the previous pavilion masters of the Imperial Sky Pavilion had not been able to do. Although he had no idea how Chu Xiu had managed to do it, based on Chu Xiu's performance today, if he managed to force Chu Xiu to leave, he would be reprimanded instead of rewarded when he returned to the Imperial Sky Pavilion. Although Lin Songhai left, Lu Sanjin didn't. He looked at Chu Xiu with an ashamed expression and said, "Brother Chu, I'm sorry. This time, the pavilion master and the others have really gone overboard." Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "The pavilion master is the pavilion master, and you are you. I can still distinguish this. However, I'm puzzled. Is the Imperial Sky Pavilion's higher-ups really unable to hold on? They don't even have the strength to stand up to Cold River City?" Lu Sanjin smiled bitterly and said, "They did in the past, but they're gone now. The old pavilion master is already over 500 years old. He can't fight anymore. He even told me that the old pavilion master's current strength is not even comparable to autumn water. Therefore, in the entire Imperial Sky Pavilion, the pavilion master is the only martial immortal that can be sent out. How many martial immortals are there in Cold River City?" Chu Xiu suddenly asked. "Only Yi Weikong alone. In the past, when the Imperial Sky Pavilion was at its peak, he alone made the Imperial Sky Pavilion afraid to make a move?" Lu Sanjin said helplessly, "Although Yi Weikong is alone, at his peak, he was already close to the seventh heaven. Even if the old pavilion master was still in his prime, he was no match for him. Most importantly, he has Meng Xinghe behind him. Meng Xinghe is his life and death brother. Although Meng Xinghe is now living in seclusion in the mountains, no one said that he can't come out." Chu Xiu already had a better understanding of the martial immortal realm from the records. In Kangwu County, there were many collections of martial immortals' teachings left behind by the previous county governor. Although they were all general martial techniques, they were still helpful to Chu Xiu. At the very least, they could broaden his horizons. Realms like the mysterious opening of heaven and earth, no matter if it was the lower realms or the Daoist, they would roughly divide them into several levels. Practically all of them were described as early stage, middle stage, great perfection, peak and so on. At the very most, there were people who were too powerful and were known as half-step martial immortals. However, that had nothing to do with their realm. Instead, it referred to their battle prowess. When one reached the martial immortal realm, perhaps it was the peak of martial techniques. Thus, the Daoist cultivators divided it into 9 levels very meticulously. There were a total of 9 heavens. The pinnacle of martial techniques was like ascending to the heavens. Every step one took was a heavens. 9 was the limit of numbers. Only by surpassing the 9 heavens could one reach the legendary supreme realm. There were no detailed records of how many heavens the Daoist martial immortals possessed. In fact, in Chu Xiu's opinion, the division of the 9 heavens was a bit too meticulous. Perhaps some people would be able to possess battle prowess surpassing the first heaven by using some sort of trump card. However, no matter if it was normal battle prowess or battle prowess using trump cards, those who were able to reach the 7th heaven could be considered experts among martial immortals. Apart from those who had just stepped into the martial immortal realm and needed to familiarize themselves with the 1st heaven, the majority of martial immortals were between the 2nd heaven and 5th heaven. Yi Weikong was close to the 7th heaven. That level of strength put great pressure on the royal heaven domain. However, at that moment, Chu Xiu suddenly thought of Dugu Weiwei. What heavens was Dugu Weiwei at? Was it the 9th heaven? Or was it the legendary supreme realm? When Lu Sanjin saw Chu Xiu standing there in a daze, he thought Chu Xiu was still furious at the Royal Heaven Pavilion's actions. However, Chu Xiu waved his hand and said, "Brother Lu, there's no need to say any more. I understand. However, you must tell me the truth. What exactly was the Royal Heaven Pavilion planning to do?" Lu Sanjin said with slight embarrassment, "Previously, the Royal Heaven Pavilion was planning to force Chu Xiu to lure your master out and use him to deal with Cold River City." Chu Xiu sneered inwardly. The Royal Heaven Pavilion had a good plan. They thought they could earn a martial immortal by inviting me, a guest. However, Chu Xiu was not too angry. After all, he was using the Royal Heaven Pavilion. They were both using each other. After comforting Lu Sanjin, Chu Xiu appeared to be very magnanimous. Lu Sanjin was very touched by his actions. As expected, Gu Zun's successor was very magnanimous. Compared to the Royal Heaven Pavilion schemes, Brother Chu's magnanimity made Lu Sanjin feel even more ashamed. After sending the people from the Royal Heaven Pavilion away, Chu Xiu was not worried about what would happen to Cold River City. Although the Royal Heaven Pavilion was weak, they were not so weak that they could not fight back at all. Unless they were so cowardly that they would hand over Chu Xiu to atone for their crimes, they would think of another way. For the current Chu Xiu, all of his thoughts were on the passageway to the lower realm. He asked Su Fengshan and the others to continue as usual while he headed to the south, where the Runhua tribe used to be. This time, Chu Xiu did not ask anyone to follow him. He only asked He Jia and the others to seal off the entire area, not allowing outsiders to enter or leave. Standing in the forest, Chu Xiu rubbed his chin and kept thinking. He even put himself in the shoes of that barbarian warrior. Back then, that barbarian warrior discovered the passageway to the lower realm. How did he discover it? 500 years ago, due to his bloodline, he was chased out of his tribe and became a barbarian warrior who wandered the forest alone. To him, the only thing he could rely on was his ancestors. Even though his bloodline was no longer pure, his reverence for his ancestors did not decrease in the slightest. Hence, every time he offered sacrifices to his ancestors or when he felt lonely, he would come to this ancestral land and silently tell his ancestors about the loneliness and pain he had endured. This time would not be long or short, so he would probably find a place to rest. There was a high chance that he discovered that place while he was looking for a place to rest. Moreover, that place would definitely be very remote, and there would not be anything valuable around it. The Runhua tribe had occupied this area for more than 100 years, but they did not discover the passageway to the lower realm. It was obvious that that place was a place that they would not even look at. As Chu Xiu pondered, he pushed the power of the heaven sun gazing at air to the maximum. His mental strength was being consumed rapidly, but Chu Xiu's spiritual sense was also at its peak. He could sense even the flapping of a flying insect within a radius of 10 miles. Although Chu Xiu did not sense any abnormal changes in this area, he had a feeling that the thing he was looking for was here. After searching back and forth for a full 2 days, Chu Xiu did not even miss a single stream. Finally, he found the most likely place. It was a short mountain that the small river flowed through. It could not even be called a mountain, but a huge mound of earth. He did not know what was going on, but the other areas were lush and green, while this area was bare. There were only some weeds growing here, and there was not the slightest bit of value. Even the people of the Runhua tribe would not come to this place to hunt. Chu Xiu walked around the short mountain and found a crevice that only allowed one person to pass through. He walked in, and instantly, Chu Xiu's eyes lit up. The space and the depths of the crevice was not big, but it was a small cave. There were even traces of people lighting a fire and living in it. However, the cave was only so big, and there was nothing unusual in it. Chu Xiu released his spiritual sense and did not find anything wrong. Chu Xiu frowned and muttered to himself, "Could it be that I guessed wrong?" As he pondered, he subconsciously felt around the walls of the cave. At that moment, the wall, which was clearly intact, started to ripple and suck Chu Xiu into it. F***CK. You're tuning in to the Unparalleled SwordWill YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.